Hey everyone, I know we're starting a little bit. Man, I look terrible. I know we're starting a little bit early. This is just kind of a test right here. Um, oh, dude. Uh, so yeah, I just want to make sure that the bandwidth is good because I'm in a different location. Obviously, this is not my house or a house that belongs to any man, but we are at Sabine's house because I have to take care of kittens. I just noticed my eyes all baggy, or maybe that's just normal. Hey, Conspiracy Sam, what's up? Welcome to the eighth annual live stream special. Testing out the internet and seeing how everything's going. How's everything going with you, man? Thank you, Emilio. Thank you. Yeah, 8 years, man. It seems like forever. Very happy that it's lasted this long. I just keep looking at my. What is wrong with my face? I guess it's just getting old, right? Getting that weird eye. Like, no, Jason, that's like some super weird eye disease. No, it's like maybe it's because of the lighting, but I feel like don't start a conspiracy theory that I'm wearing a mask, even though I look totally different without a beard. Hey, Jassy, thanks for joining the stream. Really, really appreciate it. I don't know what that little symbol means, but I'm gonna assume it's good. Assume it's a good symbol. I'm over here because I gotta take care of the cats. But that also means you're like, Jason, you're not gonna spend 30 minutes yelling at cats again. No, I don't think so. But maybe they'll make an appearance. Maybe you'll get to meet Annie and Leroy and what's the other guy's name? Venus. Maybe not though. Maybe they'll be breastfeeding during this whole thing. But yeah, we got some cool stuff going on. Oh, there's like a little. Oh, there it says "Yo, Jason," but it looks like it's Japanese letters, Jassy. If I mouse over it, it says "Yo, Jason," but before that, it's a little Japanese icon, and then it says "Me, Jason." So I didn't, I didn't know exactly what that was. But Jesse 4545, thanks for being a member. I don't know if you've ever gotten a shout out. That name doesn't sound familiar to me. Let me put this down here for a YouTube shout out, a YouTube membership shout out. Blitz Neo, welcome to the live stream. YouTube membership shout out. Alex and Maria, thank you for joining us. I recognize the name. Yeah, I did, but you pronounced me. Well, then, okay. So Jassy goes, yeah, I did get a shout out, but you pronounced my name wrong 2 times. I was about to ask, how do you pronounce your name? But I don't know if I could read it any better if you typed it out. Is it just say? I'm not for sure. Blitz Neo, how are you doing? I haven't been able to listen to podcasts for a while. That's totally normal. It surprises me that people do listen to the podcast all the time, which is awesome because that's how I listen to podcasts. But even my famous favorite podcasts, like We're Alive, eventually I stop listening. It's not because I don't love the content. It's not because I didn't enjoy it back then. But things change, and maybe I'll go back. We're Alive is that zombie podcast that I love, and they've put out like the first two series were fantastic, and the last two I really didn't listen to. But it doesn't mean that I still didn't enjoy the hours. And I've listened to We're Alive the first part probably 3 or 4 times, and I think the thing's 80 hours long. Art37J, thanks for swinging on by about Parenthood. Glad to see you and love hearing about Parenthood with the kittens. Yeah, man. Maybe that's where this wrinkle came from. Maybe this is new. It's super exhausting. Super exhausting. Oh, so, but yeah, no, we do love them. I think they're going to make an appearance later. I might pick them up, bring them on over. So Jassy says, for some reason, I was pronouncing it Hassy, which, I apologize for that. I will make sure when you get another shout out that I will not pronounce it that way. That's weird that I pronounced it like that. But historically, I do have a problem pronouncing names or words or anything. So I guess it is par for the course. I'm rocking my sick Oregon Ghost Conference sweater. Move out of the way, SpongeBob. I love this thing. A hoodie. It's not even a sweater, it's a hoodie. You had to pre-order it, and I was looking at it and I was like, you know what? I love hoodies, but I don't like the ones with the zipper. I'm a hoodie purist, apparently. And I can only do one hoodie at a time. So Alex pointed out, yes, I have shaved my beard off and it was a joke. It was a joke me and my friend had. We were always talking about me shaving my beard. So I finally said, I'm going to shave it. What's the worst that can happen? And I look terrible. This is actually better than I used to look. 2 weeks ago, first off, this here, this is this little overhang. This is new. And so I think a part of it, Jason, I didn't even notice that until you pointed it out. No, you noticed it. This part of this is aging, and part of this is due to losing weight. But anyways, that'll disappear soon, either through losing more weight, getting younger, or growing my beard back. When I originally shaved my beard, because I had my hair all out, and I looked like a cross between that guy from 90 Day Fiance. You know the guy I'm talking about. I don't know his name, but he has the slicked back hair, and I don't know anything about him other than that he's a meme. When I was completely shaven, I like to look like a cross between that guy and Matan, that internet troll dude who does those podcast interviews. And it's funny because whenever I said that, people would go, "Who?" I don't know either of those people. So I'd have to show them photos of the 90-pound, 90 a day guy and video of Matan. They go, "Oh yeah, I can kind of see it." Kyrie's, thanks for swinging on by. Good. Was feeling down and then this popped up. I'm glad I can make you feel better. And maybe even a kitten will show you. Jason, good hype in the kittens. Show them or don't. But thanks for stopping by, Cries. Scary Man Esquire, what's up? What is up? Yeah, let's grab a kitten. Let's get this started with a kitten. Hey, come here. I'm going to grab Leroy real quick, okay? Come here, buddy. Wee. Look at this guy. See, Kyrie, is you feeling down? Can you feel down with the cat? That's not how you hold a cat. Look how scared he is. No, he's dancing. Look at, he's doing a little dance. That's how happy he is. It's pretty cool though, huh? That's one of them. The other ones may show up later. That's Leroy, which I guess means the king. I didn't name him. I think it's a cool name, but I didn't name him. And yeah, it's cool. And you see, he was dancing. He was dancing. That wasn't even me. He was actually dancing. It's crazy. But yeah, the mom's here. There might be more kittens in the garage. Because this is Sabine's house. And when she pulled up, we have to take shifts, right? Who was it that Alex was saying about the dad arc, or was that Art? I think it's the same account. But yeah, or it might not be, but yeah, the parenthood arc. So when she goes to work, I come here, not really to take care of the kittens, but take care of the mom. I let her out because she's a stray cat and she would go crazy. Sometimes she just wants out free. Oh, one of her siblings is outside. But anyway, sometimes they stare each other down. Sometimes she just wants out. And so to keep everyone from going crazy, I come here during the day while what? That's my boy. That's my favorite guy. Come here, Annie. You see, he hopped up all by himself. This is my favorite. This is Annie, which is short for the Annihilator. Look at this little guy. Now, he was the sickest, and he's a bit of a runt, but that's okay. What? He's like, let me down, please. Isn't this guy awesome? Jason, I guess. I mean, he's just like, look at this guy. He's a good guy. Now, he was the guy I had a really hard time with because for the first 5 days, I had to like clean his eyes every I'll put you down, bud. I had to clean his eyes every couple hours, and it was just so sad because his eyes are like fused shut. But then I think he was just faking it. He does actually have an eye problem. We give him medicine for it now, but it was so funny because that one day he just opened his eyes up. That's funny. He jumped up on that chair. He wanted to say, what's up? Hey, tell Artorias hi. Yes. He is a kitten, a human kitten. You can tell him I said that, Matthew. I'm glad you love the cats. Yeah, it's funny because I'm a cat person. I might, I can't say that I would take one, but maybe Annie will spend weekends with me or something like that. You're like an absentee cat dad. It's like, oh, let's play catch. We'll throw this ball of yarn at you. I don't know if my place is good for a cat. The thing about Annie is that she's kind of a loner and she loves boxes and stuff. But yeah, so maybe she would find my place because I would just be saying, I'd go, here's a box, put food in it. No, I'd take care of him. Bull Rush, Ghost Conference hoodie, and the S Bob chain goes hard. Glad to catch the stream. I'm glad to have you here. Yeah, dude, I really love the Oregon Ghost Conferences and the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and I'd love to do more. I'd love to travel around more and do more of the ghost conferences. I was on a podcast recently. I was doing an interview with the Midnight Oil podcast. It's really awesome. These are two really young guys starting in this space, and they are already getting ready to do ghost hunts. I've been talking about ghost hunts for a long time. My big obstacle is, like the video editing and all that stuff, but that's a fake obstacle. That's something I could easily overcome. But they're like doing ghost conferences. They're traveling, and not ghost conferences, ghost hunts. They're talking about traveling around and doing these videos. That's something I want to do more. After the summer, I take we only have about 9 episodes left of season 31, I think we're in. And then we're going to take a break. There's going to be 2 weeks of rerun, not 2 weeks of reruns, 2 weeks of classic episodes, and then there'll be a 2 week break. When I come back, I'd like to spend that time when I'm not really doing show stuff, trying to get used to these video editing programs, because I think that would be awesome. I'd love. Now it would not replace the podcast. It would not replace the podcast. I love audio podcasts because I just like listening to stuff while I'm gaming or walking on the street or something like that. But adding a video component to something, I was thinking 2 strict audio podcasts a week, and then 1 podcast that is both audio and video. You can watch it if you want, but if you don't, I won't be like, look at this kitten, look at this kitten, and you're like, I'm driving a car, you can't look at the kitten. But I'd mostly want to do like ghost hunts and different videos and stuff like that. Joel, thanks for swinging on by the podcast. Rudy Jazz swinging on by the podcast, getting hit by that European heat wave. Joel's from Oregon. Oregon. That's how we pronounce it up here. Don't tell anyone. No, Joel's from Oregon. One Oregonian to another. So is Hans Wormhat. It's funny. Hans Wormhat is in Oregon, which shocked me. Hans Wormhat also, I check in on him from time to time. Not like I knock on his door, but I go to his channel. I go, has this guy said anything insane lately? And I mean, yeah, but nothing so insane like his. Obviously, monkeys don't exist, and then the color orange is evil. He had some bangers, or he had some bangers early on, and then we covered that one that I was really cautious to cover. That he doesn't believe that slavery, that there was no slave trade in the Americas, and I was like, bro, what are you talking about? So we talked about. I think that was. I mean, like, how do you get crazier than that? How do you get crazier than something that's so well documented? There's like chip manifests. It's not like historian stuff. It's like receipts. But anyways, yeah, I do check in on good old Hans, also a fellow Oregonian, Joel. Yeah, I like this. Rudy's complimenting the SpongeBob bling and the Ghost Conference sweater as well. I think on the back it just says more Ghost Conference stuff, but usually I'm on the shirts too as well. Like on the back, there's the Dead Rabbit Radio logo, which honestly was a bucket list thing for me when I started doing this. I was like, I want to like be a sponsor, get on the back of one of those shirts. Jorge, hello King, thank you. Thanks for swinging on by the podcast thing or the live stream here. Bull Rush says, I wish I knew of some more events, conferences around Florida. Only one I know recently was a Bigfoot conference in Ocala. It's really interesting because they do not promote themselves. A lot of these paranormal and I think it's an age thing. I think a lot of these paranormal, not to knock Oregon Ghost Conference, they're actually younger than me, but Rocky Smith and then Pete Orbea, who runs the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, are both younger than me. And they promote their stuff really well. But I think a lot of people, they just post it on Facebook and figure, oh, the people will find it. But they really got to blast this stuff out. So, yeah, it does stink. It is hard to find that stuff. There used to be a database. The way I found Oregon Ghost Conference was I found a website that listed everything in the United States. I'll see if I can pull it back up. The problem is that after COVID, they stopped updating it. I think that maybe the guy died of COVID. I don't know. Or maybe there's less conferences or whatever. So yeah, I do feel that. Joel says he's from now this is an Oregonian thing. Most people mispronounce this, the Willamette Valley. Most people call it Williamette. See, but I'm born and bred. Now I moved up here 10 years ago. By Hala Gorilla. Oh, I don't know why I said it like that. By Hala Gorilla. Happy anniversary, Jason. Thank you so much. Yeah, 8 years. It's crazy to think 8 years ago on a June afternoon, I came home and recorded the first 3 episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio. At that time called 14th Family. Different name, but same vibe. Same, just like what? What? I haven't listened to that first episode in a long time. I mean, I that was the episode I probably listened to the most over the years, but I haven't listened to it in probably like 6 years, 6, 7 years. Um, it's bad. It's bad, but I think it sets the tone for the show, right? Where I'm like, the animals talk, and I still wonder that. I go, these cats are talking to each other. They're like, yo, this guy's chill. Let them put stuff on your eyeball, all that stuff. So yeah, maybe not. I imagine though that there are certain meows mean things. Rico and Acapulco, thanks for swinging on by the live stream. Blitz Neo, thank you so much for the donation. Started listening in 2020. Thank you for all the work. Listen, I can hit this button, and I think I can hit. Doesn't like a little cartoon show up when I hit that button? Thank you so much, Blitz Neo. I'll put you down here on Blitz Neo on a sheet of paper. I will not lose. And JF Ricard, JF Re, JF Ricard, sorry, I mean, it's like right there. JF Ricardo thanks, says, hey, Jason, greetings from Argentina. Thank you for swinging on by the Dead Rabbit Radio live stream. Took me 4 attempts to get, yeah, maybe, I think of the JF throws me off. You're like, that's my name. Yeah, I can't change my name just so you can pronounce it. But no, thanks for swinging on by. Jack Squat swinging on by the Dead Rabbit Radio live stream. Really, really appreciate it. 8 is a bronze gift to represent durability because talking about 8 years. Man, that'd be cool if I should get like a bronze. I'll get a bronze cat that I have to take care of its eyeballs. A little bronze Dead Rabbit Radio statue. That'd be pretty dope. I wonder what the 10 years is. 10 years is. But it's funny because when you start something, you're like, I'm going to take this to the top. But at the same time, you don't know if anything's going to come of it. Then eventually you fall into like a rhythm. And then just all of a sudden it's 8 years have passed. And you're like, I've been doing this for 8 years. So it's awesome. It's a really good feeling. I'm glad that I'm still doing it too. You know, there's, times I don't think there was never a time so much that I was going to burn out. I mean, obviously, as I'm getting ready for my breaks, like those 50 episodes were just like, I would need a break. But there was never really a time where I was like, I'm done. Don't want to do this anymore. Unless it's something external. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I know I'm a sleepy guy. I went to bed at 2:30, which is nothing. And yeah, I got my king cap on. Rudy's pointing out I have my gas station. I'm telling you, dude, if you want the fit, buy a gas station baseball cap. I know that you're mostly for gang members. I understand that most of the clothes at gas stations you go to, I always say you can tell what gang controls an area by the color of the hats at the local gas station. What's the matter, buddy? Did you lose a cat? Yeah, she's freaking out over there. That's Harvey and the mom. Here, let me do a cat check real quick. Sorry, guys. Because she normally doesn't meow like this. Is one of your kids missing? There's one. I know, thrilling podcasting, right? Okay, so here's Annie. They're over here, Goombah. What are you freaking out about? Oh, yo, so let me... Oh, is it because of the poop? I pooped in the corner. I go, I want to try this litter box out. Let me see if it's all that it looks like. I pooped in the corner. No, so she might want to go outside. Let me check. Sorry. I'm going to get up and I'm going to see if you want to go outside, but I'm not going to do this for the next 2 hours. You want to go out? You want to go out? Yeah, head on out, kiddo. You earned it. So a lot about not the king hat that we were talking about, but to change topics, do buy your cool hats at the gas station. This is Sabine's house. And this is where, sorry if that wind is too windy. I might shut that window in a minute. This is where I sit when I'm watching movies. This is the exact position that I'm usually in. Oh, also, that big cardboard box normally isn't there. She's not a hobo. That's what we got for the kittens. When we first found the kittens, we kept them in a giant box, and because we didn't know, like how to take care of them or anything. That's where they lived until their mom showed up. Anyways, this is the house. This is the place where I sit, where I'm watching my movies, like Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which is a great movie, but don't watch it in a haunted house. This door here is Sabine's bedroom, and this door here is a spare room. And what it is when I'm watching a movie that this house doesn't approve of, because sometimes I'm just up late and I'm reading spooky stories and I get creeped out. More so than I don't get creeped out at my place when I'm reading spooky stuff up late. I'll get creeped out. But that night when I was watching Lee Cronin, or that morning, it happened during the morning, is that it sounds like it's coming from that door. The floor will vibrate. And also, because I really wasn't able to give much spatial detail, making sure I have pants on, it will feel like it doesn't necessarily start at the door, but it almost feels like it starts here. And I never thought about this detail before. There's a table here. And Sabine, I'm sure, loves that, stuff's all over the table, but I don't care. It feels like it does this. And it loops. I never realized that before. There's always an arc to it. A slight one. Whoa, almost tripped on my Ethernet cable. A slight one, but an arc nonetheless. It feels like it's not walking straight, which again might make you think it's a structural thing. It arcs. And what I do is I feel the floor vibrate as if someone is walking towards me. And it'll come to here, then it'll start back here and do it a couple times until I get too scared and I shut the movie off. So this is where I'm doing that at. And then let me take a look at these comments, and then I'll tell you more about that room there. Blitz Neo said, I started listening when I got my first job during COVID. Dead Rabbit Radio was with me through jobs, bad breakups. That always sucks. Projects, hobbies, and it's great that stuff like this exists. Thank you so much, Blitz. Yeah, I love kind of being there because I've had those podcasts, right? Those YouTube channels that I'm like, you know what? I just hope when I get home from work, I can check out this. Usually Minecraft blocks, right? Or Hinwee or Grazer, it's a bunch of 20-year-old British kids playing Minecraft. But I enjoy it, right? When I come home from work, I just want to chill, throw in something that's a constant thing. I really, really enjoy that. Joel recently listened to the Mud Flood episode. That's an interesting one. I should re-listen to that one. I might do a behind the scenes. What do I call those? Extra. I forgot what the term I used, but yeah, that would be an interesting one to look back on. Mud Flood was actually one of the hardest stories for me to break. Mud Flood was one of those, and listen, I believe in a bunch of conspiracy theories. I believe in a bunch of paranormal stuff. But the Mud Flood story, I thought, this can't be true. Now, if it is true, then I'll report it as true. But I remember that took probably like a month or two where I really was looking at all of this stuff. And that's what I thought was so awesome about that episode, was finding out about the raising of Chicago. And I go, that's why a lot of cities have a first floor that's buried, because they had population booms, and instead of open sewage, they needed underground sewage. So they either raised the city like they did in Chicago, or just put sewer pipes in. Entire cities lost the first floor. A rational answer that's been lost to history. But that was really fascinating. And I got to give a shout out to my boy Carson, because he really helped me with that. He was one of the first listeners of the podcast. He might have been in the original 14 listeners, honestly, which is funny because that's how the podcast was named, 14 Families. I came up with that name. I only had 14 listeners for a while, but I kept doing it, right? Kept plugging away. But yeah, that Mudflood theory is pretty awesome. It plays all into Tataria and all that stuff. Rudy wonders how they would know their local gang denomination. That's not the that's a gang affiliation would be denomination is more religious, but how would you know your local gang affiliation if your local gas station doesn't sell baseball caps? Where I would say any kind of low cost place like Walmart is also a key. If you go, and I don't think there's Walmarts out there either, Rudy, but I don't know. Do you have like a Tesco or something like that? You go to a place that sells cheap products, and if they do sell baseball, or they're all blue or they're green or whatever, that'll kind of give you a clue. Or you might just not have gangs. You might not have gangs operating in your area. Jack Squat asked, how wild would it be if we saw a ghost on stream? Obviously, that would be terrifying. And it's funny because you could, if we were doing it at night, I was thinking about this today. I go, what if we were doing it at night and you saw a ghost? But I go, I really think ghosts have an equal chance to show up during the day. We're just more spooked out during the night. We're kind of more aware of what's going on at night. But I did think about that, Jack. That would be crazy. Ism Jorge says confirmed haunted house. Yeah, I mean, multiple people who have lived here have said it was haunted. And then Sabine told me it was haunted. People tell me stuff's haunted all the time. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And then I had started having my own experiences here. So it was just kind of it's haunted, right? I mean, like when you have again people at different times experiencing stuff. J14 Joe, my OG on the corner of the block, wears the same hat. See, so yeah, you got this king. It denotes respect because people go, they want to disrespect you, and they see your hat says king. And they go, oh man, I can't disrespect that guy. No, it's funny. I had this hat. This is actually a replacement. My original one I lost when I was down in Sacramento, and I was like, oh no, I need my king hat. Everyone's going to think I'm just a fool, just a jester. But I did end up going to a gas. I looked at all the gas stations in the area and bought one. Let's take a look here. So let me say this real quick. So we have this store here, which is Sabine's bedroom. Now, Sabine experiences a lot of haunted stuff in there. I've had like one or two experiences, and one of them is personal, not to me. But so I do, that's the thing. Every so often you come across stuff as a paranormal investigator, is just as a human, you can't share. There's something that happened to me in there once that was what was it, a naked ghost? No. But it would reveal more information about Sabine and stuff like that. Her personal history that I don't feel comfortable in sharing, or even asking for permission to share. But that room is Sabine experiences more stuff in that room, in her bedroom, where she'll see things. Now, again, there's stuff about this house that I can't reveal on the podcast as well. I could, in a perfect world, I could tell you the history of this house, but people would track it down and stuff like that. So, but what I can tell you is that room is particularly haunted, and this house has a odd quality around cats. Not just the fact that there's cats in here, but there again is a history of cats involved in this house. Or was it a cat house? Was it a horror house? No, but there's stuff that I can't reveal, right? Because it would have too much information about the history of this house. But anyways, so you'll have to trust me on this. This house has a connection to cats. That bedroom is haunted. That we keep the house kind of sealed off so the cats don't get lost everywhere. But the bedroom door's open, bathroom door's open, the cats can kind of go in and out of there. The kittens will walk into that bedroom no problem. The other day I went in there because I have to stay here during the day. I went in there to get something, and I turned around and these 3 kittens were walking, almost like a little triangle formation, just following me in. I was like, no, guys, get out, get out. I didn't care if I just play those games with them, right? Their mom, Harvey, hates that room. She not only will never go in there, I think she's been in there one time. she'll usually just sit at the doorway, and she hates it when her kittens are in there. When her kittens are in there, she's yelling at them to get out. Like, she'll sit there at the door and yell and yell and yell until they finally come out. One time she went in there to herd them out. So I think there's some. I mean, I know the house is haunted, but and Sabine's like, I don't know, Jason. I don't know that she believes the ghost, but the cat ghost, I don't know. But I go, Harvey doesn't want to go in there, and she doesn't want her kittens in there either. So I think she sees something in there that is not good. Is not good. We got here they don't make so Pom Pommer Man is asking about the SpongeBob. They don't make them anymore. They don't. I mean, it's like it was a collector's item. Every so while, I would just search Google and see what you can find. There's different variations of the SpongeBob chain, but this was a 30-year anniversary one. So I saw it pop up one time after that, but it was a collector's item. So let's take a look here. I'm going back here through the comments. Yeah, you know what would be cool? I always thought a dead rabbit bling. Like, no, SpongeBob, bud. SpongeBob. What if it was Dead Rabbit as SpongeBob? The SpongeBob with the gold things. Jack Squad asks, is the bedroom built over running water limestone caverns or very close to a bathroom? Not close to the bathroom. I don't know about limestone caverns. I don't know how much limestone is up here, actually. That's a good question. In Hood River, I remember when I was first moved up here, I never had been here before. I just was like, hey, let's get you out of Sacramento. Let's get you someplace that's not so insane. I remember I looked at a topographical map of Hood River, and you could watch where the lava flow stopped from Mount Hood, and you could see the different layer, and it's pretty close. Uncomfortably close. If this volcano ever erupts somewhere over here, we're in between like two volcanoes. I think they call it the Seven Sisters. It's like a volcanic range, but Hood River's in between Mount Adams and Mount Hood. So I don't know if limestone and volcanoes go well together. I would assume not. I know a little bit of water can mess up limestone, but who knows? Who knows? Yes, Alex pointed out that Rudy's already a member of a gang, the Fluffle, a group of rabbits. Rudy's said there might have been a ghost in their basement. I'm looking through the comments here. Yeah, that's funny. Jack Squat says, dude, bedroom door is closed. Did you leave it open? No. I thought you were going to say you saw it close on stream. Now, wouldn't it be creepy if I'm talking and you see that door open up? We closed it because of the hey, buddy, what's going on? There's like neighborhood cats. That's a big cat. Just show up to eat some food. We need to do like a straight up hardcore neuter program on these cats. So, Zach, this isn't the studio. Zach's like, cool. First time seeing your Sabine's house. I'm here to keep an eye on the kittens while she's at work. I had to come over early to put on eye medicine, and I was like, I don't want to have to rush back home to do my setup here, but it's perfect because we have told ghost stories from here before. And I was kind of able to demonstrate the walk, which Rudy says maybe the ghost took a curve in the walk because the ghost is gay, I guess, because it doesn't walk straight. I didn't make that joke, YouTube. That was Rudy. But anyways, what's interesting about that, hey, don't freak out on me. What's interesting about that walk is I never thought about that before. It's not straight. There's a bit of a curve, which would make sense. Why are you staring at me, homie? Oh, there's a cat outside. So anyways, it's a cat I don't know either, but he's staring at me like I owe him money. Yeah, so no. So speaking of the studio, yeah, I got a little kind of a studio space set up in my bedroom. It's great. I think the podcast sounds better. It actually sounds so different. I'm still trying to tweak with some audio levels. Connie Chungus swinging on by the Dead Rabbit Radio live stream. Really appreciate it. Connie Chungus, famous artist for Dead Rabbit Radio, has produced a lot of awesome art. So glad you're here. Yeah, Bull Rush was talking about the Dead Rabbit logo bling. That'd be cool. You know, every so often I think about merch outside of the t-shirts and stuff like that, which I should probably get a new one. But Yeah, it'd be like, the Dead Rabbit Radio plushies and stuff like that. I go, "Well, yeah, who wants a Dead Rabbit Radio plushie outside of me?" That would be pretty awesome. But no, it's always fun to kind of think about what else you could do there. Rico and Acapulco, thank you so much for your donation. Here's to more years. Thinking of your intro outro. Were these tracks made for the show? Do you still make music? So Rico, let me go ahead and write your name down to get a shout out for the donation. Where is Acapulco? What country is that in? Is it in Mexico? You're like, it is a country. No, it's a city, right? Anyways, so I did not make the intro and outro tracks. He's all, I'm taking my donation back. Give me my money back. No, I did not make the intro and outro tracks. They were made by a close friend of mine named Simple. Back when I was a rapper, he made my beats. And so I bought all of these beats from him and I was rapping and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Every so often every so often I miss it because I listen to rap all the time. But so I have a bunch of music that I own that I paid for from a professional musician. So when I was getting ready to do the podcast, back then it was in vogue for a lot of podcasters to use uh, regular music, and no one ever monitored podcasts. They weren't on YouTube. There's no copyright. So you'd listen to a podcast, and at the end of the podcast, they'd play a Bob Dylan song or a Limp Bizkit song or whatever. But I was like, that's not going to work. I could see into the future. I go, that's not going to be around forever. So I go, well, how can I do what do I do with my music? And so I grabbed those two tracks, Atlantis Attacks, which was this. I mean, all the music, what the songs were the songs, right? They're goofy and crazy and very early 2000s rap rock Eminem type stuff. But Atlantis Attacks, and then the last track is Bello Royale. And so there's a fully written, there was an album released, there was a mixtape and all this stuff, and then there was a fully written second album. It just never got released. I go, I kind of got everything out off my chest. I was supposed to be this concept album, it was supposed to be this super villain making this album, which other musicians have done better. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. But anyway, so no, I had that music, and Atlantis Attacks is the perfect intro song, I think, for the podcast. It's just very uh, unique and menacing. The last track, Bella Royale, every so often I go, I don't think that was the perfect track for the ending. In fact, I found another one that I owned, and for probably about 30 episodes, I used that one as the outro track. But that one, because Simple had sampled a Barry Manilow song or something like that, that one did get hit for copyright. So I got, I like the like it to me, it is like a good send off, but I go, there probably is a better, but at this point, at 1,500 episodes, you don't want to change anything. I hate it when people make little changes thinking they're making it better, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work at all. Let me go back up here to these comments. Oh yeah. So yeah, sorry. Oh, little Louie, thanks for swinging on by. Thank you for swinging on by the live stream. Really, really appreciate it. Rudy says, should you ignore ghosts, or is that going to upset them? I figure getting involved with them gives them power. That's an interesting question, and it would be answered the same way you deal with people. Some people, if you ignore them, they just go away. And some people, if you ignore them, like let's say that there's somebody that you don't necessarily want to interact with, some people could go, just ignore them, they'll leave you alone. Sometimes that works, and sometimes that makes it worse. And ghosts are people. It depends on why it's there. I think if it's an evil spirit, ignoring it is the best course of action. If it's a friendly spirit, I'm not a big fan. I do this from time to time, but I'm not the biggest fan of popping in and being like, "Hello, ghost, welcome home," or whatever you're doing, because that can also give them energy in a different way, or something malignant can come in and disguise itself or begin to impersonating that ghost. Like the old man ghost in my closet. I don't come home and go, "Hey, Harry, what's up? How's it going, buddy?" But, every so often, like maybe once every few months, I might acknowledge it in some way, but even that's probably not even the right way to put it. I know that it's there. I know that he's there. I don't completely ignore him. I think recently, maybe a month or two ago, I think I might have said something about thanks for not being creepy or something like that. Because I think I was, but even then, I mean, that might have even been farther back. So yeah, it depends on totally on the situation. That is a good question. Joel asks, does Freemasonry count as a gang? Because we've been talking about gangs because they are one. I enjoy your podcast, despite the conspiracies people attach to us. I don't think technically Freemasons would be counted as a gang. It's funny because when you think about motorcycle clubs, right? These super violent bikers that'll deal meth and shoot people, stab each other every year at Sturgis. Not everyone who owns a motorcycle is a gang member. Not everyone at Sturgis is a gang member. But I think it's so funny because they go, we're not a gang, we're a club. Because a gang, technically, I think, is a legal definition. A gang is one of those things that's a law enforcement or a judicial term. And really, it means, if I remember correctly, don't ask me how I know this, but a gang is three or more people involved in a criminal activity, which can be loitering because that's criminal activity. If you have three or more people involved in not a criminal enterprise, a criminal activity, you can be considered a gang. And in California, it was a big thing. Matching tattoos, gang member. If you and all your buddies, went out to the bar and got a death from above tattoo on your arm right before the invasion of Clendathu, and then one of your dudes gets pinched, they can consider the other guys with that same tattoo affiliated. It's a gang, even though no, this was our sports team. We all went to the same high school and we got a big old football because we have no imagination. We didn't know what to do. We played basketball. We actually don't know why we played football. Gang affiliation. So no, unless the Freemasons are running around, loitering, right? Loitering or committing murder on the street, selling drugs. It's funny because yeah, they motorcycle club. They do not call themselves a motorcycle gang, and they will correct you as well. So I mean, be careful. That might be a piece of advice for all of you if you ever run into a motorcycle gang. I have a buddy who is a friend of someone. I knew a dude who was in a motorcycle. Well, he hung out with motorcycle clubs. He hung out with motorcycle clubs. He's a good friend of mine. He passed away, I think, a year or two ago. Is quite sad, but it was natural causes. But he hung out with these motorcycle clubs, and it's funny because a lot of time I knew the dude. I knew the dude when he got out of prison. That's how I met this guy. He was my neighbor. He got out of prison, out of this apartment complex. And there are people that you meet throughout life that you go, this guy is affiliated. This guy is someone you don't want to mess with. And this is my buddy. He was a super nice guy, really really nice dude. But he hung out with these dudes. He hung out with a rough crowd, and he was rough himself, but he was a good guy in the end. I have another friend though who knows a dude in a motorcycle club, and he says that one time my buddy asked something. He wasn't asking for a favor. I think he just brought it up as a topic. He goes, "What happens if someone ever asks you for a favor?" And these guys are good friends. My buddy and the guy in the motorcycle club. The guy in the motorcycle club turned to my friend and said, "Don't ever ask us for a favor." And it doesn't matter what it is, right? Let's say, hey, I need some money. I need to borrow some money, which would be a big thing. Or it could be something like, hey, I'm having some trouble with some local kids. You think you can take care of it? Something like that. The second that you do second that a gang or a motorcycle club or whatever does a favor for you, you become theirs. You become theirs. And the thing is like, let's say you're working at a job or something like that, you're an insurance salesman, and for whatever reason, you need to ask these guys for a favor. Next thing you know, they're going to say, hey, can you give us a list of all the social security numbers for all your clients? You can't say no. You can't say no. And the funny thing is let's say that guy knows you work at an insurance company. Motorcycle gang member comes up to you and says, "Can you give me all the social security numbers?" And you don't owe this guy anything. You'd be like, "What are you talking about?" No, because you're a square. You're outside the system. You're outside their system. And a lot of times these gangs don't mess with squares outside of like a mugging or something like that. They're not going to walk up to a banker and start shaking. Again, generally speaking, don't take this as gospel, but they don't go up to squares and try to shake them down. I mean, obviously, store owners in certain communities and stuff like that face this problem, but they see you as outside the system. But the second you do something for them, now they own you. It's quite odd. It's a very odd ecosystem. If I was let me be very careful how I phrase this. Hypothetically, if I was a active gang member, I would just be a criminal towards everybody. I would walk into I would walk into State Farm Insurance. I'm like, give me all your social security numbers. See, the difference is that that guy, what's he going to do? He's going to call the police immediately and say this guy came in wearing an Oregon Ghost conference hoodie, a gold SpongeBob, and a king hat, and he looks like a cross between Matan and the guy from 90 Day Fiance. Go arrest this guy. But if I've already done you a favor, if I loaned you money or if I took care of that problem on your block, what do you can't call the cops. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like I loaned you this money because you knew you couldn't get it from a bank. You knew that it was all bad stuff anyways, but I don't even remember how I got on that topic here. Let's see. Connie says yes. All ears, little bunny emoji for another project. Yeah, Connie's done some great art. We've had so much great art. I don't want to start naming them because I want to leave people out, but we have Scar. We have John from Scar Group. We have I can't Jonathan Douglas. Here's the thing. Should I Bajoon? Should I go through the entire list of all the fan art we have? Because that's how great it all is. I hate naming people off because I know I'm going to forget. I'm going to forget El Pato. I'm going to forget Mudhino. I'm going to forget Thick Dinkman. I mean, like, literally, we have like 100 pieces of art. Adam Carter, Ash, who did the original logo, Billy Yum Yum. I think you're just making names up. Chime Chili. There's so many fellow content creator. Micah, Sam, Fire Bear, Lissa. It goes on and on. I'm sorry if I'm leaving you off here. Gray of PTA, Lux Steve Wakari, Johnny Crimson, Joe Twit. Sorry, I appreciate all the art. This is Minimum Zucchini, HPCC's daughter. So much great stuff. Mountain Man Jake, Paulie. Robert Paulson. But anyways, yeah. So if I left your name off that list, I apologize for that. I appreciate all of the art. I don't like naming off names specifically for that because if it was me, I'd be like, oh no, you didn't say my name. But no, I appreciate all of the amazing art that we got. Alex says Maria says that the intro, I'm a little freaked out. Actually, I'm a lot freaked out. That is so awesome for the show. That really is a fantastic sound clip. And it's dope that we got it so early on. Like, that was my nephew. I don't know if I say that specifically in that early episode because I might have said it was my nephew because it's been a long time since I've listened to that. But what a sound clip, dude. And I was just hanging out with my brother and I don't know if I've ever said that. I think I have. He's like, hey, I got to show you this weird video. And I heard that. And I was like, dude, can you send that to me? And what a perfect clip. And again, that's something I would never change. There might be I've thought about for a novelty episode changing it. But there have been times where I've changed the music or played it backwards for a particular episode. But I'm a little freaked out. Actually, I'm a lot freaked out. It's such a great quote, and it's a real. I mean, you can hear the kid. He's panicked. He thinks it could be Jesus or aliens or zombies. He doesn't know, and he's terrified. So it's crazy to think. So the show's 8 years. The show's been around for 8 years. He is graduating. My nephew's graduating high school he graduated in May or June. So he was in about 9 or 10 or 11 when that sound clip was made. It's crazy. I hang out with them when I go out there for the summer. He's a cool guy, although I'll say, don't watch Invincible with him because as you're watching an episode, because I'm way behind on Invincible, he's all caught up. As you're watching the episode, he goes, "Oh, dude, this part is crazy. He's totally gonna kill that guy." And I'm like, now, normally I would say, "Hey, bro, dude, chill." But because it's my nephew, like I enjoy the time with my nephew more than getting the show spoiled. If it was a friend of mine, I'd be like, "Dude, come on, man. I'm I'm literally 5 minutes away from the scene you're spoiling." But it's my nephew, whatever. Like hanging out with him. Let's keep going here. Little Louie hyping up the likes. There's only 14 likes at the time. We're up to 21. Nice. You know, it's funny whenever I do these live streams or the movie nights or stuff like that. No, I appreciate that, little Louie. Whenever I do these, for me, it's just the interaction and having fun. I do wish more. Here's a funny thing. I do wish more people would come out to the movie nights because we watch so many cool movies. It's not like, oh, I feel like we need bigger numbers. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep doing this. The shorts we watch are so dope and the fun times we have afterwards or even before. I go, oh, I hope more people show up. And it's not because of a number or a metric or an algorithm. It's because I want more people to watch these dope shorts or the really bad ones like the moldy bum one we watched. Wizard's Wagon says, glad to see the SpongeBob bling is back. Yeah, he's hanging out. It's funny because I almost had him tucked in, not because I'm trying to hide my love for S Bob, but yeah, no, it's just because I was cold. Deep Flamingo, I was a Madonna for about a decade, and every once in a while you hear about a gang. I was a Madonna. Oh, I'm assuming is oh then Deep Flamingo goes Mason, not Madonna. Okay. Because I was like, what? Madonna? Is that like some new is that some new group we need to be aware of? Are we gonna have a Madonna deep dive? I was a Mason for about a decade, and every once in a while, you'd hear about a gang getting hold of Masonic accessories and adding them to their uniforms. 100%, 100%. Who's that famous gang? I don't know if it's the Gangster Disciples. A lot of Masonic imagery in gangs. There's a ton of it. There's a lot of here's the reason why. There's a lot of imagery in gangs, anyways. Symbols are powerful. Symbols are powerful. There are certain symbols that hold an intrinsic power. And so if you have I think the gang members are aware of this. I think the Masons are aware of this. I think religious communities are aware of this. Political parties are aware of this. The donkey and the elephant of the Republican and the Democrat Party, I don't think those hold any real uh, value to them as far as a symbol go. But obviously, when you look at something like the cross, and you'll see that imagery used a lot in gang um, imagery, but a lot of times it's also a religious thing. But when you talk about, say, the compass of and I don't know if that's the exact term of it, but of the Masons, there's a power to that, whether it is a newer power, whether it's based on the triangle, all seeing eye, right? We have that on our money. Gang members will also use that, and so yeah, they perceive and recognize the power behind it. And you're running a enterprise where any day you could lose your life or end up in prison for a long period, if not for the rest of your life. So you look for these powerful icons. In America, they'll have these gangs and these rituals. In other countries, it's a full other like part of it. You need to have like some sort of witchcraft, some sort of magic to help you with your gang activities, which again comes down to all of these symbols. Drawing till the casket drops. Says getting look smogged by Dead Rabbit Radio over here. No, no, my beard, man, I miss it. It's growing back, but not growing back fast enough. So you know, whatever. But thanks for bringing up my looks again, Drawing. Casket Drunk, Smut Funk, which fantastic name. Sounds like a band is given the three bro fists. Art, fantastic donation from Art Maria and Artorius. Let me write down these three names. Form, maybe that's from me, Artorius and Maria, 10 for you and 10 for the kittens. And happy anniversary, kittens. Did you hear that? You guys got $10. You guys got $10. You guys are getting 10 $1 cat toys. I'm going to the dollar store after this. No, really, really appreciate the donation. You guys will be getting your shout outs. Let's see here. Conspiracy Sam, I originally thought it was from a movie or something. I don't know. Sorry. I'm seeing comments about banana bread, and maybe that's a comment about the Madonna. I think the Madonna comment had everyone kind of questioning what was going on. Joel, let's see. I wonder. Yeah, Joel says this is a good question. Are certain times of the day more prone to ghosts or spirits? It tends to happen around early. You know what's so funny? So the witching hour is something that I think there's some truth to, but I don't know if it's necessarily like a lot of times people say 3 a.m. is the time of the most evil spirits because it's supposed to be the opposite of when Jesus was crucified at 3 p.m. And I've, you know, I don't know if we know what time he died on the cross. I know it was during the day because there was that eclipse. But, an interesting question skeptics have brought up about that is what about time zones? Like, it wouldn't make any sense. If it was 3 p.m. in Jerusalem or Calvary, he wasn't actually crucified in Jerusalem. In the Middle East, I'm trying to think of my Middle East geography and my Bible history. I don't know where Calvary was. But the point is that 3 p.m. there would be, 6 a.m. everywhere that's not there or other places. I don't know how time zones work. So 3 a.m., there probably is something that's recognizable about that being a creepy time about allowing stuff. I don't necessarily think it's because of the opposite of Jesus's crucifixion, because it just wouldn't work as far as time zones go. One second, I gotta take this pill for my heart. I was supposed to take it at 6 in the morning. It's 11, and I felt my heart start to stop. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, but I think people are more prone to seeing them at night, and I think being up 3 a.m., the bars are closed, society is kind of shut down. Hypothetically, if I used to be a not civilly minded person, I would always recommend. I probably said this before on the podcast. If you're going to commit crimes, there are certain times where you should and shouldn't do them. Like never, Jason. That's the time you should never do them. I said, what you need to do is find out. There's basic stuff, right? Committing crimes during the day, you're just kind of dumb, unless you're robbing a bank, because the bank obviously has to be open. But let's say you're doing more of a personal crime. Driving around between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. There's a lot of people out, a lot of people witnesses, right? From 10, so you go, okay, then I'll commit a crime after midnight. Well, the problem is that from 12 a.m. to say 2 a.m., 3 a.m. around there's less drivers on the road, there's less witnesses, but the police are more observant of all the vehicles that are coming and going because they're looking for drunk drivers. They're leaving the bars. People drunk drive at all times, from bar opening to bar closing, sure, but the people who are, leaving the bar at 2 or 3, they're possibly drunk driving more than someone leaving the bar at 10. You have less people out. The police are more observant. So what you do is, I always called this the golden hour, and it was basically 4 a.m. to around 5 or 5:30, and 5:30 is pushing it. 4 a.m. to 5 is the perfect time. If you have to travel at any point and you don't want to be recognized, you don't want anyone to know your business. And the reason why 4 to 5 is the best is that is when most cities outside of, say, New York, San Francisco, most places are truly asleep. Very, very little cars on the road. Even the police at this point, they're kind of just sitting somewhere drinking coffee, waiting for their shift to end. It's the end of their day. And like a lot of people, the end of their day, your brain is shutting off a little bit more. You're thinking about what you're going to do when you get home. Around 5:30 is when the city starts waking up again. People walking out to their cars because they have to work at, say, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. So by 5:30, people, their house lights are back on. Their coffee is brewing. People sitting in the living room reading their newspapers back then, hypothetically, or tablets today. But from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m., the city is truly asleep. And if you wanted to travel through a city and do anything that you didn't want people to know about, that is when you do it. But this limits a lot of stuff. Let's say you're a drug dealer. You can't really deal drugs. Who's your customers at 4 or 5 in the morning? I mean, unless you're selling meth, that's a 24-hour business. I got to let this cat in, but let me finish this sentence. Then we'll get to Rudy's donation. Really appreciate it. 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. was what I always called the magic hour. You're like, we just asked about when ghosts are going to show up. We didn't know you were going to give us a hypothetical, detailed plan of when to commit crime. I'm not saying do it, but if you're going to do it, I'm going to let you in, buddy. Come on in. Get on in here, buddy. Come on in. Come see your kids. Get in here. There you go. There you go. Here, I showed Venus yet. Let me grab Venus here real quick because I think he's going to... Hold on, buddy. No. No, I know. See. She's the most skittish because the only time I pick her up is when I'm giving her medicine. So I woke her up. Go have a little kitten dream. I wanted to show you off before you started sucking on your mom's boobie. Oh, come here. I'm sorry. She's all... I picked her up from across the room. She was sleeping. Her mom came home. I picked her up from across the room, brought her over here. She's like, you expect me to walk back? That's super far for a kitten. You want me to take you back? Let me go take her back. I'll take you back. I'll put... No. Whee! There you go, buddy. There. Now you don't have to walk back. Now let's get to Rudy's donation. Appreciate it. Rudy, thank you so much for the donation. Put it here. Can I request you shout me out? This is always a tricky one. Can I request you shout me out in a story set in Switzerland, where Rudy lives, or Tennessee, where Rudy's girlfriend lives? Technically, yes. And I'll write that down. But in practice, a lot of times, first off, thanks for the donation, Rudy. I'll get donations from people, and every so often, it's super rare because I learned my mistake. I'll go, hey, is there a particular story that you want me to cover on your shot? I don't know why I asked this. It's always a nightmare. So case in point, Robert, Maria, and Robert's dad. I saw him in the Oregon Ghost Conference. They've gotten their shout outs. And I asked because I was like, wow, they traveled all the way from Arizona to come to the Oregon Ghost Conference. It's a family. It's a big family. And I asked, I go, so what type of stories do you guys like? And Robert, the son, if I remember correctly, said, I'm kind of into anything, just nothing gross, right? Which is a fair ask. I get that. People will submit, donate money to the Patreon. And they're like, hey, man, I love the show. Don't put me in a gross episode. Fair. Robert's mother, Maria, liked the conspiracy ones, or the ones that made her think, I think is the way she put it. And he goes, my dad loves the alien ones, especially the ones where humans beat up aliens. He likes those ones. So Robert's episode and Maria's episode came out super quick. Robert's dad's episode, I don't even know if he still listens to the podcast. It came out like almost 3 months after his son and his wife got, because I was like, that's so specific. And I think it was a recent episode. And I remember we were beating up aliens in the beginning. It really didn't have anything to do with the story. Honestly, it did have to do with gray aliens. But I think it started off with us like attacking an alien base. Because that's the ask, right? So I don't do that. I very, very rarely do that. So yes, I can do requests. The drawback is it may take longer. Rudy gets shout outs all the time. Rudy, a longtime supporter of the show. But I will find a Switzerland story, maybe a story where someone moves from Tennessee to Switzerland. I'll go to ChatGPT, make up a ghost story. No, I will. Yes, you will get shout outs for those, but they may take longer. That's always a drawback. But no matter what, I really appreciate the donation. Joel says there's a Masonic biker group, not club or gang, that is called the Widows. Widow's Sons, but they're not a criminal gang. Yeah, Rudy read the book Monster Autobiography of a Gang Member. That book is amazing. They said that was a very intense book. That's an awesome book. I think that's one of the few books I've recommended on the podcast. I'm not an avid reader of books, but man, it's crazy. That book is about basically the foundation of the Crips. I believe it's specifically a group of Crips, and the guy wrote it in prison. I'm pretty sure he escaped. I don't think they ever caught him again. But I remember reading the book, and at one point he's buying because he starts off with just him and his boys hanging out on the street corner, eventually become this big criminal enterprise. Actually, no, the gang existed. I remember when he was 12 in the book, he took a sawed-off shotgun and opened fire on two people through like a chain link fence at a school. And I don't think he shot him. He hit him. I don't know if they died, but that's how the book starts. Right? That's the first chapter. But there was crazy stuff when he was buying guns. He goes, we used to just break into people's houses and steal their guns. That's how we did it in the 70s and 80s. When we broke into a house, the first thing we would do is go through the drawers and get a revolver, get a shotgun from the closet, what have you. Gun safes weren't really a thing. But as the gang grew, he goes, we started buying crates of AK-47s. Like by the time the mid 80s, we had so much money, we were getting stuff shipped up from South America. And he goes, this guy, this arms dealer that he met in Los Angeles, right? This guy specifically, I mean, talk about CIA, talk about CIA involvement. But they're selling these AK-47s by the crate to these gang members. And he goes, this guy, this arms dealer selling us these AK-47s, hey, dude, can I interest you in a grenade launcher? And the arms dealer pulled out a grenade launcher, and Monster is like, what do you think I am? I'm a monster. I'm not an idiot. He goes, what am I going to use a grenade launcher for? Now, nowadays, maybe not the US gangs and their gang warfare will use a grenade launcher, but cartels will. That's probably a standard operating weapon. What's interesting is that he goes, what am I going to use a grenade launcher for? But later, I don't remember if this took place later in the book or earlier. I think it was later in the book. He had a buddy get home from the Navy. I've always tried tracking this down. He goes, I had a boy who came home from the Navy. He was on leave, and he brought me a flare, like a flare gun. But he goes, it was almost like a pin that it would launch a small flare. You're supposed to be like if you're on a boat or something like that. It might have been a normal, if I remember correctly, it was like a tube, not like a flare gun. And his boy in the Navy gives it to him. Well, Monster later is at like the LA County Fair or something like that. And some rival gang members talking trash. And he goes, I pulled out that flare gun and I shot him with it. And it went right into him. Dude, this looks super intense. Now, again, he doesn't say, and then the guy died. Because he wrote it. He was already in prison for murder. He technically wasn't confessing to these specific crimes. But crazy book. I highly recommend Monster. It's pretty nuts here. Let's see here. Let's going back here. So I'm going to out myself here as a bit of a normie. Give me 1 second. This is in relation to Bullrush's comment, and similar to Symbols, what on, and I will mispronounce this. I always mispronounce this. Gematria, and it's basically here's the thing. I had to look it up. I know what it is, but I also had to look it up. It's basically this thing where you assign numbers to letters, and the idea of what's my opinion of that. That's something that I looked into a long time ago. There probably is something to it. It's something that doesn't intrinsically interest me. Like I think the first time I came across it was probably pre-Bible code, but this idea that you could go through old literature or old testament, right? Literature I guess kind of means fiction and nonfiction, but it's a Kabbalah thing. And it's one of those things that it could be super valuable. It 100% could be super valuable. but it's not something that I'm drawn to. It's not something that I find super interesting, if that makes sense. I still see it brought up. They'll, like I'll be reading a post and they'll do the gematria or however, but you know what I mean? Like it's funny because there are just certain things that I go, there's probably something to that. Astrology is a good example of that as well. I think that the daily newspaper astrology, it's probably just super vague um, guesswork, right? It's entertainment. I do think there's a pop culture astrology. There's very, very accomplished astrologists. And somewhere in between the two, there's probably something real, I think, further up here. I think you could say that about a lot of paranormal stuff. But I do think there probably is a lot of value in that high level astrology. I know people who take it as seriously as I take Battlefield 6, basically, or even more seriously. I used to have an encyclopedic knowledge of Marvel comics back before the movies, back when it was still nerdy. So that made me cool. But I knew people who knew that about astrology. I knew a guy that was all about star signs and astrology, and I hung out with him, just a couple times. We had a few mutual friends. Kate and Chelsea was mutual. What was his name? Was it wasn't Stan? Nate, I think was his name. Anyways, we hung out a couple times, and he was doing my astrology, my star charts, but I didn't know the precise time I was born. And he goes, "That's real." He goes, "The stuff in the newspaper, that's kind of just generalized. You need to know your moon sign and your star sign, sun sign, all that stuff." And then, moved away. What was his name? I hope I'm getting it right. But anyways, I don't know. Hadn't talked to the guy in 7 years, and then when I was talking to him again about something online about astrology stuff, he remembered my signs. And I was like, "Dude, how'd you remember it?" He goes, "Because this is what I'm passionate about." Like we hadn't talked in years, and he still remembered my signs. And so he's super interested in that. And some people are super interested in the gematria or germataria is how I usually pronounce it. There's probably something to it. It's just not something that's so interesting to me that I've really delved into it outside of I don't think I've ever read a book on it. I think I've read chapters in a book on it 20 years ago. But there's probably something to it, honestly. I think language, especially old. Nowadays, gang going back to gangs, they'll hide stuff. If you needed to hide knowledge, I think it'd be really easy to hide it in text, especially if you didn't want, not that you didn't want other people to know about it, but you didn't want people having access to it. I think that you could easily hide things through these numbers, and these symbols and stuff like that. Short Circuit, happy 8th anniversary. I'm glad I found your podcast. I'm glad you found my podcast as well. My favorite show since 2019. Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Oh, well, says Jason is fire. Yeah. So, and Joel, to do a little bit of a correction, not a correction so much, but Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, meaning the place of the skull. The 3 p.m. that became associated with the time of his death, although the Bible doesn't give an exact number, represents the Trinity. So thank you for that. So yeah, even that would kind of, you could say, well, the 3 a.m. represents the anti-Trinity, which I guess is kind of referenced. I don't think the word anti-Trinity is ever used. I don't even think with the Antichrist and the beast and the false prophet. I don't think I could be wrong. Like they might be referred to as the anti-Trinity, but Radio Rudy has said they're going to go commit a crime at 4 a.m. They're going to loiter. Rudy was also saying they were surprised loitering is a crime. It's one of those crimes that's only enforced against people you don't like. But it is a crime that I understand why it's on the books, because otherwise you could just go and stand. You could be anywhere all day long and you go, well, what's wrong with that? Well, if I'm sitting there and I'm being a nuisance. That's the thing. It's one of those, it's a nuisance law is what they call it. So it is a way for the police or for business owners to say, move along. Are you going to get arrested for loitering? Technically not. But if they're looking for an excuse, then yeah. But usually it's just kind of a move along thing, because otherwise you'd be like, well, why? Why can't me and 20 of my friends stand outside of this liquor store all day long. Well, the owner doesn't want you to. Well, it's public property. So it's basically a move along. There is an interest, and I do think there's an anti-homeless component to it as well. There is an interesting component to loitering, I believe, and I could be wrong on this. If you're in an area, this is what makes it very anti-homeless. If you're in an area for too long and you don't have any money, I could be wrong on that. But then you're loitering. You're not actually shopping. You showed up at a place you have no money. You're spending all day long in a Starbucks or in a Barnes and Noble. I've done both of those. You're not buying anything. You're loitering. And so that would be the law you're breaking if they didn't want to straight up trespass you. It's the same thing if you shop. And again, this could be a criminal urban legend, but this is what I've heard as well. If you shoplift and you have the money on your person to buy the item you were shoplifting, it's a higher level misdemeanor. If you walk in and you steal a loaf of bread and a bottle of Coke and you have nothing on you, it's still shoplifting. But if you had $20 cash in your pocket and you stole the loaf of bread and a Coca-Cola, then it's seen as a different crime. It's not a crime of necessity, it's a crime of greed. Alex Artorias and Rudy have now formed a gang. I'm letting everybody know that has happened. That has happened during this live stream. Beware the crime spree. Loitering all over. XO, only XO. Thanks for swinging on by the live. Really, really appreciate it here. Drinking some rain. Isn't that like an energy drink? I backed off the energy drinks. My energy drink of choice was Rockstar Punched. That is the best energy drink. I know you guys thought I was going to say Monster. I know you guys thought I was going to say Diet Monster with the little white monster. No, Rockstar Punched. Every so often, I have a craving for one. It's so good. But, after I went into AFib, that was years ago. I haven't had AFib in a long time, but it's been about 3 or 4 years. But a couple years before that, I would drink energy drink every day. I love Rockstar Punched. It's so good. It tastes sorry. I know it's like I need one now. But so much caffeine, man. Like nowadays, I try to limit. I mean, I still drink a lot of soda. Diet Mountain Dew, Diet Pepsi is kind of my drinks of choice right now, but it's like 300 milligrams of caffeine, not sugar. 300 milligrams of sugar is bad enough. I think that'll kill you. But it's just too much caffeine. But I do miss my Rockstar Punch, not because of the caffeine, but because of the taste. And I saw once they had a diet Rockstar Punch, and I was like, dope. That's the same amount of caffeine. I want non-caffeinated Rockstar Punched. I don't care about the calories if I'm just drinking it every once in a while because it tastes like a Slurpee. Maybe I'll get one after this. Rudy's asking, I think we should all say this at the same time. Rudy's asking, who's that guy who lives in Tennessee and sells evil psychedelic potions from his house? Max Kramer, man. Max Kramer. I still have, with the 3 episodes a week thing, it's funny because that schedule has somehow been harder to keep up with than 5 episodes a week, just as far as like rhythm. But I still have one more Max Kramer story to do, and probably not the last one. But remember, I was doing Max Kramer month, and then it turned into Max Kramer months, and it's spread out. There's one more story I have to do. I don't want to spoil it so much, but a couple of people have already guessed that he loses his mind, obviously. But now people in the community are really concerned about him because we've always encountered Max Kramer stories from him. Every story we've looked at Max Kramer over the years is him doing something or saying something insane. But he's becoming well-known enough in that area that people are starting to become concerned. And for the very first time in Dead Rabbit Radio history, we're going to look at other people talking about Max Kramer. Because if you think about it, it's always been us. And now other people are like, dude, who is this guy? Because he's becoming more of a known quantity in Tennessee. I remember after I did that song, what was the Gauntlets? That was the name of his drink. I was talking, oh, that'd be cool to like live stream going out there. But that to me, I think kind of crosses a line. He hasn't done anything real criminal yet. It's not like I could say, no, this is like a Dateline NBC, or this is probably a bad example, but this is like I'm an investigative journalist. No, I'd be kind of going out there to just take photos of his property and laugh. Maybe if, I hope nothing bad ever happens, but yeah, quite an odd duck. That's putting it mildly, right? We got at least one more story, and I've always wanted to do the musical episode. I've always wanted to do the episode with the um about his, what was it, Bojangles. He had a yeah, he wanted to make a steak restaurant, a roller skating skate restaurant. Jingleberries. No, not Bingleberries. And I had a musical episode. I wanted to do it like Willy Wonka, and we go on this tour of Bingleberries, and it became like this thing in my head, and I was like, I can't do that. I don't have the skill level or the music. I actually, sorry, man. I actually got a hold of Simple again because we still talk. And I mentioned the Willy Wonka theme, and he sent me over some stuff. But it's not gonna work. We're just gonna have to do Bingleberries, not Bingleberries. What was it? Anyways, you're like, Jason, what is going on? I got distracted because now I'm thinking about Max Kramer. But anyways, I do have more Max Kramer stuff to do, but I want to cover this one where other people are talking about it first. Kelly can't get right. Thanks for swinging on by in the live stream. Really, really appreciate it. Long time listener of the show. Connie Chungus is saying they're moving to Dunedin this weekend. Oh, and they'll be within walking distance of these different haunted locations: the Fenway Hotel, Andrews Memorial Chapel, Hammock Park, and the Commodore's home. Have I heard about any of these places? They are famous for their paranormal activity. I would have to take a look here. I would have to take a look at these guys. And off the top of my head, I can't see those in the search. I'll take a look at those and find, because it's very possible. But that would be cool, right? Maybe you guys can do some on the ground ghost hunting. You're all possessed. Broadcasting live from Fenway Hotel. Shooting fire out. Dorkosaurus Rex, thanks for swinging on by the live stream. Finally have a new apartment. I was effectively homeless for about 6 months. This is the perfect way to celebrate. I love Dead Rabbit Radio. We're glad that you were able to find a place. Hopefully it was more couch surfing than having to be out on the street. But yeah, it's always nice. I've had periods like that in my life where it's just like, it's nice to finally have that place again and have a place that you can relax. So really glad that that happened for you. It's funny because I think once that happens to you, it's happened to me a couple times. I fear that. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, oh, dude, what if I take one of these cats? What if I adopt Annie? And then I go, oh, but what if I lose my place and I need to find a place that has a cat? And I go, Jason, I mean, it's definitely possible. It can happen to anybody, but you have that, once that happens to you, there is that always that underlying fear that it could happen again. And I've used to live in my car for a period of months, which is very expensive because you eat out all the time. And then I did a lot of couch surfing in my late 20s and late 20s mostly. And yeah, it's not fun. So I'm glad that you've got that stability back. Really, really appreciate it. Fabulous Killjoy, thank you so much for the donation. Thanks for a great 8 years of episode, Jason. Hoping to make it down to Oregon to visit my buddy and see the conference sometime. Kyler W. We hope to see you as well. That conference is awesome. If you guys can, and thank you so much for the donation. I'm going to write this down as a shout out for you. I think I know you I think we've talked as a different name on here as well. That's why I kind of paused. But at the ending there, and I don't want to give out what I think might be your real last name, but I really do appreciate it. The donation. Yeah, swing by, see your buddy, and swing by the Oregon Ghost Conference. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. It's a totally interesting vibe because you have all the vendors. The two ghost conferences that I go to, Oregon Ghost Conference, they're both fantastic. Oregon Ghost Conference and Port Gamble Ghost Conference are very different. Oregon Ghost Conference has a ton of vendors. So it's basically it's at a convention center and they have a ton of vendors and they have the stage for the speakers and there's always something for you to do. If there's not a speaker that you want to listen to, you can walk around the vendor area. There's nothing at the vendor area, not a speaker you want to listen to. You could go down to the beach, go get an old timey photo taken. I do that. I have two old timey photo taken of us, but there's a lot of stuff to do there, and it's a lot of fun. They got a lot of good speakers and a lot of good vendors, and like go. When I say vendors, yeah, they do have like people who sell candles and people who sell sage and stuff like that. Which I'm not knocking that. I'm not saying like that's lame. But I don't buy a lot of candles or I don't buy a lot of sage, but I do buy knickknacks and stuff like that. So like I'll get stickers or I'll get little statues and stuff like that. They have a lot of merch. They also have a lot of ghost hunting groups. So when you come out to Oregon Ghost Conference, there's a ton of groups there that will talk to you about their ghost hunting and where they operate from, if they do tours and all that stuff. So it's a great group of people to meet. The Port Gamble Ghost Conference is a smaller venue and there's less vendors. But the advantage to the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and again, I love them both. They're very different. It's almost hard to compare them outside of the subject matter. Because the venue is so small, you only shop in between speakers. Because almost the second that presentation starts, the place is quiet. And everyone sitting at the vendor tables and everyone sitting in the audiences watches the speaker. Now you don't have to, right? You can get up and leave and enjoy the beautiful town of Port Gamble. It's very scenic. There's a lot of cool shops there as well. Also, I don't know how true this is, but there's a store there that claims to have the largest collection of Star Wars action figures for retail or something like that. And it's a really cool place. They also sell a lot of 80s stuff. I have a deck of Gremlins playing cards and a deck of Nightmare on Elm Street playing cards I got from there. So it's a totally different vibe. The vendors are, again, a combination of merch stuff and then ghost hunting communities. And then also that's where my friend Kelly Schutz, who I've been on her podcast a couple of times, and she has like 4 or 5 different podcasts and she's being interviewed she's doing all this crazy stuff. She's doing fantastic. She'll have a little booth there. Brian Blackwood and Michelle Morningstar will usually have a booth at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference. And they'll have a booth at the Oregon Ghost Conference as well. But it's a different vibe. It's in a old Masonic lodge. Speaking about the Masons, the Freemasons, as much as we have. It's actually in an old theater that also doubled as a Masonic lodge. And I think at one point was also a mortuary. Maybe it wasn't a Masonic lodge, but maybe that's where the Masons met or something like that. But it's really cool. Like, I love them both. I love Oregon Ghost Conference for the size and for the energy, and there's always something going on. Oh, and both of them have classes. That's something I've never done. That's something that, a lot of people teach classes there. Brian Blackwood, he's the guy who wrote the book Fractured. It's part of a expanding universe with him and Michelle Morningstar. They're doing these novels. I told him, I go, you should do a class on how to write a book. I go, everyone wants to learn how to write a book because everyone wants to write a book. And guess what he does now? He does classes on how to write a book, and he makes money. Like, you make money at the merch. He does sell books anyways, and he does have a cologne line that I actually wear that I've been meaning to give a shout out on the show. But teaching the classes, it's super. A lot of people do that. So there's tons of classes, astrology and stuff like that. How to write a book, how to be a medium, how to communicate with your pets, all sorts of great things. And Port Gamble Ghost Conference also has classes. I've never taught a class. I've thought about it. I don't know what I would teach. No one wants to know how to do podcasting anymore. Podcasting is no longer this big thing everyone wants to get into like it was a couple of years ago. And I don't even know how to do it, right? I don't think I could say, hey, here's how to do a podcast. But yeah, so I recommend coming out to these, or like we were saying earlier, find out which ones are in your area and go to those. But it is hard. It is difficult to find sometimes you'd be surprised what I mean, I'd been up here for years. I was doing the podcast for what, 5 years. I didn't know there were any ghost conferences. And the Oregon Ghost Conference has been around for 13 years. Port Gamble Ghost Conference, I think, has been around just a little bit longer than the podcast. But Jackson App says, listen to the pod while eating Chinese food every week. Thanks, brother. Stay spooky. That's a gamble, man. I don't know if I would, knowing this show, I don't know if I could sit down and go, yeah, I love Chinese food. Don't get me wrong. But the show gets so gross sometimes. I don't know. That's a gamble for sure. There was a comment here I wanted to see real quick. I think it was from Kelly, but let me double check. I'm going to jump ahead here real quick here, and then I'll go back. There's a super comment from Kelly. Okay, I guess we'll find it here. We'll find it because I thought it was an interesting question. But anyways, here, going back up. Joel says about going to the Oregon Vortex, which is in Southern Oregon. It's a very famous tourist location up here. Animals will avoid the place entirely and the laws of physics break there. Now, I've heard of the Oregon Vortex, and that's a place where you walk in the cabin and you get small or the cabin gets big and like the water runs uphill and stuff like that. I've always heard it was an optical illusion. Joel may be correct. I've never heard about the animals avoiding the place entirely, but I had the laws of physics break here. I've never been there. I'm assuming Joel might have been, so I will default to Joel. I've always heard that it was an optical illusion. Now, I remember once in Sacramento, it was maybe more in Folsom. My brother, one day we were hanging out, which was rare, right? Because we're brothers. And this was a long time ago. This is when I still lived down there. He calls me up. He's like, yo, dude, you want to see something weird? So how would I not want to do that, right? I was like, yeah, sure. What's up? He goes, I found a place where the water runs uphill. I was like, what? He goes, it's just super weird. It's super weird. Let me come pick you up. I was like, yeah. Or as kids say these days, bet. So my brother comes and picks me up, right? And he drives me up this winding road. He's sharpening an axe. He's like, oh, I will be the favorite brother after this. No, he takes me out to the middle of it wasn't in the middle of nowhere. It was a normal street and it was a culvert. And we pulled over the side of the road. There's a stream coming down this hill. And we're not in the middle of nowhere. There's houses nearby. And there's it was more like government/industrial zoning and stuff. And there's a fence. There's like a chain link fence. And my brother goes, yo, check that out. And I look and I'm like, dude, what is this? He goes, I don't know. And we watched the water run uphill. There was this stream cutting up this hill and the water was going up. I go, was it an optical illusion? He goes, that's probably. What else could it be? We sat there for a minute, we're looking at this thing, trying to figure it out, but you can't approach it. There's a fence there, and it was government property, if I remember correctly. So sorry for all the yachting. State government, or city government. Now, I remember a couple of years later, I brought that story up to my brother. I was like, yo, because I thought about it. I wanted to go back out there. I was like, yo, dude, remember when he took me to the place where the water ran backwards? He goes, what are you talking about? I was like, bro, you took me out in the middle of the day to this place out like Folsom or whatever, water ran backwards. He had no idea what I was talking about. And I don't think that was a Mandela effect. I just think my brother's an idiot. But there are places like that. Now, again, was it that gravity was working different here? Was it an optical illusion? I would lean more towards the optical illusion, but I wonder why that particular area was city property. You go a city, they probably have like a waterworks up there. If it was waterworks, even that wouldn't explain it because, again, it wasn't a pipe. It was just water going up a hill. Let's say it was an electrical plant. Let's say it was a building that held accountants or something like that. So I'm not tired, actually. I'm just yawning. You wonder that if that is something unusual and the government can't destroy it and they're not going to cover it up, You're not going to concrete it or whatever. So they just fence it off and say, and even the people who work there probably don't even know because this was like on the side of the hill. You had to stop your car and get out and kind of look for it. I don't remember even how my brother found out about it. I always thought it was interesting. They had the Devil's Hole, I think is what it's called, or the Devil's Cave. And it's a place, if I remember correctly, in Death Valley. It's where Charlie Manson was going to hide during the Helter Skelter race war that he was trying to start. Him and all of his followers were going to go down into this bottomless cave in Death Valley and hide out while there was a huge race war. And then Charlie Manson and his followers would come out and rule over the victors. Dope, right? I mean, Charlie Manson's kind of lame, but this idea of bottomless pits, secret society, whatever, a gateway into an inner earth, that's gated off now. You can't go out there. Government owns it. And if I remember correctly, not only does the government own it, it's a weapons testing range. So you can't go there because it's not just because there's a fence, because it's not safe. And you wonder why there was an existing military base and they expanded their boundary to cover that area post Charlie Manson. So why did they just have that expansion? They go, we want 20,000 acres and this is direction we're going to go in. Or is there a gateway there actually to something? This was Kelly's question. It doesn't probably mean anything to anyone else, but maybe it does. Kelly asked, we share a birthday, me and Kelly. Kelly can't get right. And Kelly asked, so I know we're a Libra, which I think is our star sign or maybe our moon sign, but what's the second one since we share a birthday? Well, this is the tricky part. To find out your second sign, which the way I was explained to it, you need both of them for it to be entirely accurate. The first sign is kind of just a general overview, but if you want to get down to, should I make this business decision this week? Should I decide to go on this trip? Should I do this? Should I do that? Like big decisions. You need your second sign. And it comes down to like the hour and even the minute you were born. So it wouldn't help you at all, Kelly, if I told you mine. I think because here's the thing. I did get so curious about that. I did finally fish out a copy. I do not have a birth certificate, by the way. I know that I probably can't run for president because we saw the trouble that Obama went through. I do not have a birth certificate. I have a certificate of live birth, which is technically a birth certificate. I mean, I don't want to get into like politics and conspiracies and all that stuff. Well, I do want to talk about conspiracies, but I do not have something that actually says birth certificate. Mine says certificate of live birth, which is what Obama had. And I know there's a bunch of conspiracy theories, and some of them are super interesting about like, the certificate of live birth and but anyways, we're not going to get into that right now. I do more research on it, but that was something that I did look into back then because I just thought it was so interesting. I have a certificate of live birth, and I think it shows on there the time I was born. I know on birth certificates it does, if I remember correctly. But I remember really trying to look it up. So if you want to know both signs, you have to know the time and the location where you were born, which is pretty easy for most people, they'll remember. Not as a baby, but, someone will tell them. And you need that more information here. To get that second sign, it really does get it going here. Let's take a look here. Scooting through here. Yes, so this is what I want to get to. Kelly, thank you so much for the donation. Kelly can't get right. Love your lives, Jason. Love. Live streams. I thought you meant my multiple lives. You've been watching me through my reincarnation forms. Wouldn't that be crazy? Like if you're a fan of music and you're like, I don't really know why I like this particular. Like, I don't listen to pop. I do listen to pop, but for my example, let's say you go, I don't normally listen to pop, but I'm a huge fan of Olivia Rodrigo. I don't know why. I'm just not, I just feel drawn to it. And it turns out like she was your best friend in a past life or something like that. I actually do love Olivia Rodrigo. I pre-ordered her album and I don't even know when it comes out. I bought it like the day it came out and I got to wait months for it to come out. She's fantastic. Let me go back to reading Kelly's comment. Love your lives, Jason. Wish you'd come closer to me down south. because Southern United States, I'm assuming, not just Southern Oregon or like down to California. I would love to travel. I would love to travel. Wouldn't that be awesome to be like, hey, everyone, we're doing this ghost hunt. We're all going to stand outside the Fenway Hotel and we're going to run in there dressed as the minions, going, "Hey, there he goes, there he goes." That'll be my new gimmick. We're going to go to Max Kramer's house. We're dressed as minions. That's all we're going to do. That's crazy about that Scientology thing. Those kids dressing up as minions. You're like, oh, I was wondering what that was a reference to, and then running into a Church of Scientology building and just causing chaos. And I guess two kids in New York got caught and they're being charged with a hate crime, which it is. I mean, here's the thing. However you feel about Scientology, you can't you can't target a specific religion and then harass them. That's the definition of a hate crime. Now, I don't think anyone's thought that. You don't even think about that. And if you look to Scientology and go, well, they're not a religion, it's a corporation, I can run into IBM headquarters dressed as a minion, and the worst I'll get is a trespassing charge, but they're a recognized religion. So whether or not you recognize them as a religion is completely irrelevant. I feel bad for those guys. I mean, again, causing havoc, targeting a religion, regardless of how you feel about them, and running around and causing havoc is not acceptable, right? It's just you wouldn't accept it if someone was doing it at a Christian church or a synagogue or a mosque or anything like that. And if you read that in the newspaper, you'd be like, "Oh, dude, come on, man." But that's a big charge. Hate crime charge is a felony, and but that's a tough one. Like if you're on the jury, how do you sit on that? How do you sit on that? Do you go, well, these were just being dumb kids, and they Kelly's like, what is my comment have to do with hate crimes? I don't even know how we got here. Sorry, I don't even know how we got here, Kelly. Traveling around, and I made the minions joke. You're on a jury and you go, wow, this is a issue with it's a hate crime. Yeah, Rudy brought up the bricks and minifigs. That was happening in Oregon. I know that the majority of the story with the police stuff was happening in Utah, but the bricks and minifig store was in Oregon. We had all heard about that because it's probably, I don't know, 2 hours away or something like that. We had heard about that in the local news. They're like, dude, did you hear about this guy got his minifig, his Star Wars Lego collection basically stolen, allegedly, right? That's how it was being reported in town. People would talk about it in town because it was a big story. Not a ton of stuff happens in Oregon, right? $200,000 worth of Legos disappearing, or whatever. I know stolen's a legal thing, but and then when I started seeing the stuff on YouTube and it was talking about Utah and it talking about the Church of Latter-day Saints and all this stuff, I was like, wait, it happened again, right? There was two elderly people with two collections of Legos that both took them I thought it was two separate stories. I thought, wow, the Lego community's going nuts. Some dude just did catch some hardcore felonies for breaking into Lego. Because they say right now, they go, Legos are worth more than... Let me back up. Let me rephrase that. As far as an investment, some people say Legos are more valuable than gold as far as a growing investment. Not that a pound of Legos is worth more than a pound of gold, and I've never verified this. I've just heard this commented over the past year. You buy a Lego set for $100. The chances that it's going to increase in profit relative to its price is greater than the increase in gold relative to its price. It's possible. Some of these sets, a lot of these sets are, limited edition, or, they'll come out with it. You have the collectors and all that stuff. But yeah, that was another thing, the bricks and minifigs, that, like fights were breaking out of the store. I did follow it kind of at first because it was a local thing. And then when it was a YouTube thing, I think I watched videos about the video. Like I was watching, I think A Tozy is one of the guys that I watch, and he'll do kind of internet culture stuff. I think that might have been when I first heard about the bigger thing with police corruption and all of that. It could have been Voidzilla, though. I don't remember exactly what YouTube channel I saw that on. But yeah, it is crazy stuff. Let me switch from the hate crime thing. Look at this. So when I went to the Oregon Ghost Conference on the 13th, no, I didn't. That confused me. It was the 13th annual Ghost Conference. While I was there, and I feel really bad. She commented on my Instagram, and I wanted to give out her Instagram for this. But so she did this for everyone. She did this for everyone. While we were on stage doing our presentations, she did a sketch of us. And this is what she did of me. Isn't that here? I'll move my hand. I want to scan it in so I can use it as the fan art. She did give me permission for that, but isn't that awesome? I'm wearing the, like, you look like Biggie Smalls or Big Pun or Fat Joe. You're right, and thank you for those compliments. I was wearing my big burgundy jacket, and that's why I'm wearing. That's why I'm colored red. And she goes, I didn't know what the SpongeBob was. She could see that I was wearing a gold pendant. She didn't know what it was from her viewpoint. And she thought, she goes, the light on your hat made it look like it was gold. She was like, you know how artists are, right? She sketched this while I was giving my presentation. And when she hands it to me, she starts going, well, I didn't get this detail right. I didn't get that detail right. But isn't that awesome? I was like, dude, that's dope. The color of the hat, like, who cares? It's awesome. So I've been meaning to scan it in. I have to go to the library to do that. But Nova B is how she signed this. She added me on Instagram, and I really wanted to give an Instagram shout out for this as well, but I cannot find her. So maybe she'll be listening to this live stream or this podcast episode. That would be super helpful. I should put a have you seen who drew this on my website as well. But yeah, that was really cool. That's some extra stuff we're going to put on there. Joel says the Oregon vortex. Let me back up here first. The Deep Flamingo asks, could the water have just been coming out of a pump? No, it was water running uphill, dude. I mean, here's the reason why I had that reaction. I actually skipped a comment because I've told this story and people, you would have had to have been there to see how, that's the thing. You would have had, and this was not back when everyone had a camera. Whenever I've told this story, people go, could it have been this? Could it have been that? Could it? No. It was, okay, air purifier instructions. Here's a hill. Here's me and my brother. I tried drawing my brother to look like a dummy. I wanted to make it look like he was an idiot who fell on the ground. That was my impression. That was my intention. It looks like he's ready for doggy style. But that's not it. It's not it. Do not do any heated rivalry, Wincest. But anyway, so this is me. This is me, strong man, Jason. Sorry for the podcast listeners. Here's my brother, not in any sort of sexual position. Like, Jason, how else can you interpret that? What is he? Well, listen, maybe for something else, but maybe he's looking for his glasses or something. He doesn't wear glasses. But anyways, this is strong me. This is my idiot brother. This is the top of the hill. And there's like bushes and stuff, right? And we're watching the stream like this. We're watching it the length of the hill. So there's no pipe. There's no pump. There's a fence right here. Sorry for the podcast listeners. I know this isn't too, but I mean, there was just nothing there. You watched it go up. Now, it wasn't a super wide stream. It wasn't like, obviously, this looks like the Colorado River. My brother's on all fours. He's like, oh, yes. I totally get turned on by the raging rapids. But no, it was nothing else. There was no, you would have had to been there. It was so weird. And it was just natural water moving up. And again, it would happen every time. Like my brother went out there, then I went out there. 2 totally different times, 2 totally different days. It's not a pump. And even then, it would have had to pump enough to get it up that hill. It would have had to have been powerful enough. You should have seen some of the splashing effect usually used with the pump. The Oregon vortex is not an optical illusion. This is what Joel is saying, but the scientific explanation is the magnetic lines that get crossed there and cause weird things to happen. It's why compasses will spin forever. It's totally possible, right? Again, it's something that Oregon vortex is very famous. I remember hearing about it before I moved to Oregon. It's very famous in the world of the paranormal. But yeah, I've never gotten out there. I probably should actually. That would be pretty awesome. To backpack on two of these, Rudy says, I had a horrible vision of someone doing a serial killer tier list and ranking them on how cool they are. People do that. They're called school shooters. I mean, for all I know, someone's putting together a video like that right now. Wendy Goon's like, what? He's just putting the finishing touches on his serial killer tier list. Adam Lanza very famously had a list of, I think, like the top 500 mass killings or something. It might have been less than that. It might have been the top 100 mass killings, but and there wasn't just school shootings. I was reading recently about a guy. What country was that? Where I don't want to spoil it. A bunch of people do get killed, but it was I'm actually going to do an episode on that. But then there was another guy, and I believe that was in somewhere in Asia. He killed like 30 people in a day. He just walked around town gunning them down. So 37, and at the time, this was in the 50s or 60s. It was the biggest mass killing by a single person outside of war. And he was on Adam Lanza's list as one of the top guys. Kelly asked, have I kept it with true crime lately? Yeah. There hasn't been anything super crazy recently. We had a true crime case local, which I've debated covering on the podcast. Maybe I'll just do it right now. We had a dude. I never met him. I never met this guy. And he's not Hood River. He's not a Hood River guy. He's Mosier. He's a city over, and he actually lived in the Dalles, which is 2 cities over. But, towns are probably a better term. 47 years old. Owner of some pretty big businesses in the area. Well, a local coffee shop here that I'm not going to name because they've been getting harassed. And then he's an owner of another coffee shop out in Mosier, which again is maybe 10 minutes away. They've also been getting harassed. Anyways, 47 years old, 2 marriages. I think he has kids from both marriages. I know he has kids in high school right now. I heard about it because he was pretty well known in the community here, even though he doesn't live here anymore. Someone mentioned, did you hear about that arrest over the weekend? And I was like, what? No, I didn't. I was too busy watching Widow's Bay or whatever, which is a fantastic show. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast yet. 47 years old, Brian McGeeney is his name. And the reason why I keep bringing up his age, because at a certain point you go, you idiot. What were you thinking? 47 years old, 2 marriages, kids, business owner, gets busted. 46 felony counts. Allegedly, what he was doing was he was having sex with a 14-year-old girl. Like, what were you think? You're 47. You think at a certain point, you just go, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. 14-year-old girl. Delivery of cocaine to the girl, marijuana to the girl, alcohol to the girl. He's 6 different charges of rape, 3 of rape in the first degree, which means they're intoxicated. And then 3 charges of rape in the third degree, which means they can't legally consent, i.e. being a minor. And worst of all, morally worst of all, you're having sex with a 14-year-old girl, you're plying her with drugs and alcohol. Legally, worst of all, he got with trafficking and compelling prostitution. So I think those will result in the biggest charges. If he's guilty, he may never get out of prison. And a lot of people would argue that he shouldn't. What I wanted to talk about on the show, I didn't want to air out his dirty laundry, even though here's the thing. It's so interesting because the evolution of it was, I found out about this story from a friend. And then, of course, because, Oregon, not a lot of stuff happens. Bricks and minifigs that had already run its course. We hear about this Brian McGeeney. He gets arrested over the weekend. All of those charges, too, were from between January and May of this year. The police got a tip I'm assuming from the girl, one of the girl's friends, or the girl's parents. Police get a tip. All those charges are racked up just for those 5 months. So who knows what was happening before that or if anyone else is involved. We don't know. But the first thing I hear is, did you hear about the guy got arrested? And I didn't know who the guy was. I go, no, I didn't hear anything. And I'm not really a gossip, right? I mean, obviously, I'm talking about it now, but let me explain. I didn't then immediately ask, what did he get arrested for? How did you know the guy? I just kind of go, oh. And then I went and looked it up. And I was like, oh, dude, 47 charges. And when you look at it, it just says providing alcohol to a minor, providing cocaine to a minor. Okay, stupid. And, people were talking, I was talking to people and they go, well, he does always has hired very attractive young girls to work at his businesses. I don't know if that's true, right? This is all alleged. And I go, well, and I'm not saying that any of this is right. But early on, when we were talking about it, nobody knew how old she was. And so you think, well, this idiot probably hired some 17-year-old to work at his store. And, he just was an idiot. He seduced her and he's giving her all this drugs and alcohol and cocaine and all this stuff. He's messing around with some 17-year-old. That is still illegal. That's still 100% illegal. You shouldn't be doing that. And I remember making the comment because in Washington, just across the river, the age of consent is 16. And I go, dude, if that guy really wanted to have sex with a 17-year-old, he just moved to Washington. And they wouldn't do anything to him. It's totally legal. And I made that comment and I go, if I'm not giving people advice, I'm just saying if that's what this guy wanted to do. And then I remember the person who originally told me about the arrest, we were talking about it a couple days later. And I said, I don't understand. It's still illegal. And he's hooking up with some 17-year-old, and my friend goes, that's not what happened. So she then, it had been about a couple days, maybe a week. She had learned how old the victim was, and I still didn't know. And again, I'm not a gossip. I didn't ask, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then the Oregonian ran an article on it. And the headline, I believe, was like local businessman or coffee purveyor is what he was listed at, arrested for sex with 14-year-old girl. They're both illegal, but there's a huge difference between 17 and 14. And it's like, dude, like what? Again, I'm not saying that, you know what I mean, though? It's like when you're like 47 and 40, like I just don't understand how we thought he was going to get away with it. The hubris, the amount of this idea that he would, so that it makes you think this isn't the first time. This is all conspiracy cap. You know what I mean? Like people do stupid stuff for the first time, but were there other people involved? The reason why I wanted to cover it on my podcast, and it wasn't just to air out dirty laundry. I mean, I could go all day long and say, what were you thinking? How did you think you're going to get away with delivering cocaine to a 14-year-old girl, having sex with her, and then pimping her out, compelling prostitution? Insane. That's not the reason why I wanted to cover it. The reason why I wanted to cover it is because there's been quite the controversy locally in how we deal with his businesses. Now, the one coffee shop that he previously owned, he has not owned for over a decade. I actually like that coffee shop. I go to it every once in a while. I think it's the best coffee in town. It's just kind of hard to find parking. Originally, people were saying he owns this coffee shop, boycott this coffee shop. And it took a couple days for people to go, oh, no, he doesn't own that coffee shop. He sold it like 14 years ago. He sold it a long time ago. Don't boycott that coffee shop as a new owner. Boycott this other coffee shop that he owns with his wife. Because if you go to this coffee shop now, you're giving him money. You're supporting him through the trial. And I wanted to cover it from that angle. First off, a little bit of the hysteria, which I understand. It's a horrible crime. And I can understand if he owned the coffee shop, if he was the sole owner. First off, the fact that they got the coffee shop wrong is an interesting thing as far as like that mob mentality. But then if you were a sole owner of a coffee shop and you got convicted of this crime, arrested for this crime at this point, but convicted, it'd be no brainer. Sorry. It'd be a no brainer to boycott it. But and this, I don't have an answer to this question. This is a question I was going to give to you guys. If he co-owns a business with his wife, who, her husband's in prison or jail, right? He may never get out. I don't know if they have kids. I believe he has kids with his previous wife, but again, I'm not entirely for sure. You're co-owner of a business. Your husband gets arrested for statutory rape of a 14-year-old girl, cocaine, compelling prostitution, all this stuff. Do you, as a citizen, boycott that business, knowing that half the money goes to him and half the money goes to his wife, who may need it? Now, what's interesting too is that that's not entirely true. As I did research for this because I was going to cover it on the show. Then I thought, no, I don't know if I'm going to, but I'm glad I can talk about it here towards the end here because I think it's an interesting question. He doesn't own the business anymore. In January, which is around there's when these charges that they go back as far as January. I don't know if there's a connection. In January, Brian transferred or sold the business solely to his wife, and he's just the landlord of the property. So, was he? I don't know if that is timed with the allegations. I don't know what was going on. But do you boycott that business? Do you boycott that business, knowing that the owner, the guy in prison, the guy in jail, is going to be getting some of that money, or do you continue to support the current wife? There's a GoFundMe for the wife. I think it's up to $19,000 already. Here, these were high people in this local area, people that I never were connected to, and I'm connected to some pretty high people in Hood River, specifically Columbia Gorge, a little less so. But I'll talk to people and I'll be having casual conversations with someone, and then a mutual friend will be like, "Yo, what were you talking to that guy about?" And I was like, "Oh, just catching up." And they're like, because it's like a high level person in the community. I just have connections, right? And I didn't know these people. There basically weren't really Hood River people as far as I know when I moved out here. But these were, I mean, think about it, that you could get 19 grand in a GoFundMe in a couple weeks. One shows the community support for the wife, but two also shows people have, pretty big pockets and they're willing to support her. And what do you do, right? You would assume she's going to keep the money and not give it to her husband, probably soon to be ex-husband. I thought it was an interesting question. How do you morally deal with a situation like that? Do you just stop supporting all businesses that he has any connection to? Do you support the business knowing that some of it may go to him, but you want to support the wife in her time of need? It's an interesting question. I thought that was a kind of an interesting question. There's one other thing I want to say about true crime, because I thought about this in relation to Brian. There's two scenarios. One, this is all made up, right? A vindictive family or a vindictive girl making all of this stuff up against Brian. Now, there was an indictment. They did do, the police did an investigation, took this to a grand jury, but they always say you can indict a ham sandwich. It's pretty easy to indict people, but is it all made up? Or is it all true? Here's my question to you, because I thought about this in relation to Brian. I don't know what would be worse. Imagine the same charges. Imagine you are arrested by the police and you go, "Why am I being arrested?" And they take you down to the police station and they read you these charges. And you know for a fact they are 100% fake. You know who the girl is and why she made the story up. And you go, these charges are completely fake. Oh my God, I'm being charged with 46 crimes I never committed. And you're sitting there in that jail cell and you don't know what's going to happen, right? The court system may just say guilty. You have to deal with all of this stuff, and there are innocent men in jail. So that's scenario one. You get arrested for all these crimes and you know you're 100% innocent. What would be worse, an innocent man being arrested for false charges and sitting in a jail cell, or a guilty man being arrested? Now imagine you're that same guy and you did all that stuff: the coke, the weed, the alcohol, sex with a minor, compelling prostitution, you did all of it. And the police arrest you and they take you to the police station and they read you those charges. And they take you to a jail cell. What's worse? I always thought the worst thing would be being arrested for a crime you didn't commit, because you're trying to prove you didn't do something. And you better hope you have alibis and witnesses and all sorts of stuff. I always thought that would be the worst. But now I was reading about Brian. I go, I don't know what's worse. That actually might be worse. You know, you did everything on that, and you know there's all this evidence, and you know there might even be other stuff out there that they don't know about yet. And you're sitting in that jail cell. Because one of them, you have to convince people you didn't do it. And you didn't do it, which might be easier. But, you know, district attorneys are just, every interaction I've had with the district attorney has just, they're car salesmen. They are literal car salesmen with college degrees. That's all they are. District attorneys do not care anything about their closure rate, anything about their success rate. And just like a car salesman, they do not care about society. District attorneys are dregs. Motorcycle clubs. I would rank motorcycle clubs far above district attorneys. But anyways, the district attorney doesn't care whether or not you're innocent or guilty. They just want to get you off their plate. They do not care. They don't care. And you know that going in. You go, this district attorney is going to do anything it takes to just get this case resolved. Even if it means me taking a plea, which I didn't do it, so I'm not going to take the plea. But if I go to court, they're going to fight me like I'm Charles Manson because they just want to win. So I have to prove I didn't do something, but I didn't do it. Versus you know you did all of it and you have to prove that you didn't. I guess I never really thought about that. For some reason, this Brian story made me go, that sucks for him. I mean, it's terrible if he did the crime, he has to pay the time. But imagine having 46 counts of some of the worst stuff that you can do and know that they have all that evidence. And you're like, pfft. So anyways, yeah, interesting. I'm glad I actually told it during the live stream because I do think it's an interesting story. We'll put it at the ending here. But I did want to tell that story. This is an interesting question here. We'll go a little bit longer. Hope I'm not boring you guys because I think this is it's an interesting question. I was having this conversation the other day with a friend. Rudy asked, because we were talking about the Minions. Well, first off, Deep Flamingo says there should be a Dead Rabbit World Tour, which I totally agree with. That would be awesome. We'll go to Argentina. We'll go to Acapulco. We'll go to all these great places. We've been really doing a lot of big numbers in Jordan and the United Arab Emirates. So we could literally be a world tour. India, we're actually blowing up in India right now as well. Rudy, maybe not after this discussion, Rudy asked, isn't Scientology a cult? This is the interesting thing about a cult. Let me double check something right here. But generally speaking, I can't speak for the dictionary definition. But generally speaking, sociologists, religious scholars, the difference between a cult and a religion has only one factor. One. Numbers. That's the only way you can fairly say what the difference is between a cult and a religion. When I was growing up, Jehovah's Witness and Latter-day Saints were considered cults. In the 80s, they were spoken about that way. They were considered cults. Nowadays, you will not use those words to describe either of those churches. You would not describe as Jehovah's Witnesses as a cult. You would not describe Mormonism, Latter-day Saints as a cult. And Scientology, I think, has fallen into that same thing. There's just so many members. You need to have a definition for it because otherwise you could say Christianity is a cult. You could say Islam is a cult. You can say Judaism is a cult. Buddhism is a cult. They all fit the definition of they have the secret rituals. They all have a like a fixed vision of the world. They all have members of various levels of dedication, but sometimes people take it way too far. So the general idea of what makes Christianity a religion and what makes Branch Davidians a cult is numbers. If there were 1 million Branch Davidians, they would have never been labeled as a cult. They would have been labeled as a cult when they were younger. But let's say that David Koresh didn't get killed. Let's say that all of these allegations, they weren't true. The kid stuff. I don't know if they were, but conspiracy cap. Let's say that there were no kid stuff. They didn't have guns. The ATF never raided the place. It was just a local religion that grew and grew and grew. They would be considered a local cult for only so long, and then eventually they would become a religion. So much so that you will have in the Mormon religion and Latter-day Saints, they will have breakaway groups that they may call a cult. They go, yeah, that guy 20 years ago left and he started a compound out in the middle of the desert. He has some cult because it's not part of official Latter-day Saint. He has his own message, his own vision. So the difference between Scientology technically is not a cult as far as the general definition goes. They have way too many members. Legally, they're a recognized religion. So whether or not you consider them a cult, you can't run into their church. That's what it is. It's the Church of Scientology dressed as a minion, screaming. It's disrupted. You're targeting a religion. And I think, honestly, if there was a local quote unquote cult of like snake handlers in Louisiana and it only had 20 members, they'd been established, they'd been having this church for maybe 20 years, maybe just 5. And you said, hey, we're going to go to the snake handler cult and we're going to run around dressed as minions. That might get you a hate crime charge as well. Even though you could go, well, it's kind of a cult compound. Here's the thing, no one does that. No one dresses as the minions and goes to the Branch Davidian compound because they do get shot. They did have guns. Plus, it doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, that's the definition. Whether or not it's, and I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, whether or not it's a cult is based on how many numbers it has. I haven't heard Mormonism referred to as a cult in years, decades, but I used to hear it referred to a cult as a cult all the time growing up because they didn't have, they didn't have anywhere near the political power and definitely nowhere the amount of members, not just in America, but worldwide. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Kelly says, I thought church doors were always open to everyone. Well, they are, but you can't run in dressed as a minion. That's like, you can't, if you walked into a Catholic church and you start yelling in the middle of the sermon or ceremony, whatever the term is, I'm Southern Baptist. We use the term sermon. It's not ceremony. There's another word for it, but I did go to a Catholic private school, so should know, but it's disturbing the peace at the very least. You could say, well, Walmart has their doors open, so can I run around all day long? I keep saying dress like a minion because I will say the visual was funny. Like, here's the thing: when it first started, I saw a video of a guy dressed like Gru and a bunch of minions, and they're outside the Church of Scientology. I'll be honest, I did not think of it as a hate crime at all. I thought of it as being, that's pretty disrespectful. It was a funny image, but I was like, I could see that being funny one time. But imagine like if you worked at Walmart and a guy ran in dressed like a minion, it'd be funny. If he did it multiple times across the country, maybe it gets a little old. But I remember when I first saw the image, I went, huh. But then oh yeah, I guess that is a hate crime. You're targeting a religion to run around. Now, again, whether or not you agree that they're a religion or with what they do, it's irrelevant. It's still a crime. The same thing with environmentalists, right? They go, I don't think this company should be doing this here. I'm going to chain myself to this tree. You disagree with what the company's doing. People may agree or disagree with what you're doing, but it is a crime. You're trespassing. They own the land. So that's why they're going to come. Has that happened in a long time? I remember in the 90s, people would come and live in trees and stuff like that to prevent, cutting stuff down. It's been a while since I've seen that. Um, it's so funny. People are really going down on Scientology in the comments, which is not what I expected, obviously. But um, Connie Chungus, says can't wait to leave Clearwater soon enough. Yeah, Clearwater is Scientology capital. I had a good friend who was a Scientologist. I think we've talked about this on the show before. We did a ghost episode about it because I think I did the auditing. We've talked about this before on the show, right? You talk about having the church being open. They do have um, open doors. You can go into a Scientology church and you can talk to them. I had a very, very good friend who was a Scientologist. Her whole family were Scientologists. Very, very lovely people. They wanted to get me into Scientology, which is what religions tend to do. I didn't see it as a cult thing, but they really wanted to get me into Scientology, and they gave me some of the literature, and they had me visit a Church of Scientology. And it was all, I mean, again, weren't trying to I want to be very clear. It's not like they're trying to trick me or anything like that. They saw this has really helped us. We think it'll help you. And it's the same way that people who turn to Christ or find religion in some way go, wow, this really changed the way I look at the world. I now want to help other people find this religious path. And I did. I went to the Church of Scientology and I watched their training video. And I don't know if I said this on the episode, but I was like, I didn't want to get brainwashed. I'll be honest. I was like, what if there's some hypno thing in this a video here? And there wasn't. But, I walked around the Church of Scientology. I got a tour. And then my friend, she wanted to do auditing, which is the question and answer thing, to clear out the engrams, I think, or is the thetans is the term, where we have these negative entities attached to us, which is very reminiscent of Loosh and solar plexus clown gliders, if you think about it. Every human has multiple negative entities attached to them, and those are the reason why we have certain phobias or certain desires. You have a fear of heights. There's this giant guy attached to you, or whatever, however it works. But different spirits are attached to you, holding it. And here's the thing: what I am telling you that they believe in is in any way crazier than what I believe in as far as my Southern Baptist doctrine. It's just older. And it's not that much older. Southern Baptist is a deep South American version of Christianity, which that goes back 2,000 years and technically further back to the Old Testament. But I can go, man, look at these guys. They believe these energy vampires are attached to me. Planet Xenu or the Overlord Xenu and all this stuff. And then I go, okay, guys, now hold on here. I gotta have my little religious ceremony here where I pray that an angel comes down and cures my grandma of AIDS. And the difference between those two is that, well, you go, Jason, I mean, you believe angels exist. I do believe angels exist. I do believe in miracles. I do believe in the power of Christ, and I do believe in religion and all that stuff. But to an outside observer, it's just as insane. This guy died, and then you put him in a cave, and you rolled a big boulder, and then 3 days later, he moved the boulder, the angels moved the boulder, or whatever. And it's so funny. Every so often, I'll quote something, or I won't quote something. I'll talk about something from the Bible on the podcast, and then as I'm listening back to it, I go, oh, I should find a source for that. And I was like, that's not even in the Bible. That's not even part of religion at all. I had picked it up somewhere along the way, either through a sermon or someone telling me something. And then I repeat it and I'll edit it out of the episode. Like that happens. There's a lot of stuff that I will talk about or believe in that has no backing anywhere. So we can talk that they have wacky beliefs, but what I'm saying is, in a vacuum, all religion has wacky beliefs. All religion has odd things. So anyways, she wanted to do this auditing thing, and we did an episode about that. And I think I picked the most traumatic experience, or one of the most traumatic experiences of my life up to that point. And she goes, yeah, sure, let's do that. And it was a disaster, and I ended up seeing a ghost and all sorts of stuff. But anyway, so I don't remember what we were. We're obviously talking about Scientology, but yeah. Oh, I said they do have open doors. You can go in there and join. There actually is looking at being a reformation in the Church of Scientology, because it's very expensive. It's very, very expensive to move up through the, not to be a member, but to move up through the levels of Scientology. It's very expensive. And there are people who said, this stuff changes your life. This stuff is life changing. It's helped me. It's helped give me out drugs. It helped make me a better person. But I think we should make it free. And there's been talk in the church of having a split, of some people just saying, why don't we just take all, like the Bible's free, the Quran is free, Torah is free, or I mean, you can buy them for like $5 or whatever. You can go and buy a Bible for $5, but the information is free. It's out there. All the Scientology stuff is trademarked. You have to buy these courses, and they go, what if we just release them online for everyone to read? The Church of Scientology goes, it's too dangerous. You have to move up through the levels. If you jump to the last level and you're not prepared, it'll kill you. So that's kind of their argument, but it's very interesting. There might be a reformation in that church. You might see quite a different Church of Scientology in the coming years. Let's see here. I think we are running towards the end, but so I'm kind of skipping around here. Excuse me. Kelly said, did you see this about true crime? Kelly, did you see that lady that killed her 15-month-old and tried killing her husband? Another kid, she has 6 of them, and blamed COVID, and literally judge just said not guilty due to insanity, but she's going home with her. I did not see that. I will Google that. That sounds insane. And judges are pretty dumb too. The district attorneys are the worst in the criminal justice system. Attorneys are the worst because they only care about putting you in jail or getting that plea deal. That's it. They do not care if you're guilty or innocent. Judges, a lot of times they're idiots, but a lot of times they're not. Defense lawyers can be slimy, but at the end of the day, they may be the only person that is protecting the truly innocent. And the cops, they're just kind of the cops, they're kind of the enforcement wing. As far as criminal, I know people have definitely mixed feelings about cops in general. But as far as that criminal justice wing, they're almost just the guys who do the investigations and the pickup, and that can be rigged as well. But once you're in that system, criminal district attorneys are just absolute horrible. It'd be one thing if they would fight for innocent people and be like, you know what? Yeah, this guy didn't do it, but it would be a mark against them. So they don't do it. It's absolutely disgusting. How many times did you take an L in your life to help someone out? You go, this might not make me look great, but whatever. Yeah, that guy's right. His idea is better than mine. You're getting ready to prepare the Johnson account finally. This guy can handle it better than I can. You do it, right? If you truly think it is, but yeah, district attorneys are the worst. Anyways, Anonymous 5133 looks like I joined at a macabre point. I'm assuming it was me. What was I talking? Oh, it could have been the Brian thing. Yeah, it was, because I see Kelly talking about the coffee shop owners. I want to make sure I didn't see anyone else who might have popped in here. Oh, well, thanks for swinging on by. Jack Squat, they're all liking the artwork. It was really good. I really like that artwork as well. I want to find out. Give the Instagram because I'd love to share it. She did one for every speaker, and it was cool. She was giving it out. Drunk Bob, thanks for swinging on by. Pretty awesome that you were able to make it out. Leela6665. I love Far Cry 5. Oh, that was the cult. Dude, that game was dope. Far Cry 3 was good. Far Cry 4 I didn't like as much, but Far Cry 5 I think was probably my favorite of those 3, where you do fight the cult. I like the American vibe. I like driving around like Americana. But Far Cry 3 was really... Far Cry 3 is probably the best. Far Cry 1's awful. By the way, you're like, oh, I didn't even know there was a Far Cry 1. Kelly says, Jason, cults have fear, coercive control, threats, murder, isolation, child sex abuse, and stuff like that. Yes, but those are also all things that you could... I mean, obviously, I can make the parallel between the Catholic Church and the child involvement there, the child molestation there. And again, every religion has an issue with that. But most religions get rid of the leader, get rid of the minister, get rid of the youth minister, get rid of the choir director. At the very least, sometimes they'll turn them over to authorities as well. The Catholic Church was moving them around. That was what made it so much worse. They knew this guy was a problem. They moved him to another parish. But I could go back to the Christian church in the witch hunt days, right? The Inquisition, fear. They controlled their people through, if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. If you don't do this, your family's going to be in purgatory for 1,000 years. Obviously, murder, threatening. Sometimes it's a spiritual threat. So what I'm saying is like, you, I know that you go, well, the Catholic Church doesn't do that these days. I mean, the Southern Baptist Church, the reason why it was the Southern Baptist Church was because, and I don't obviously support this, but it was the church that was in support, the Baptist church that was in support of slavery in the South. They were able to say, look at all this stuff in the Bible. This is why slavery is okay. So modern day Southern Baptists don't believe that, but it existed. You can't deny that it was there. And at the Southern Baptist Convention, Southern Baptist, I don't know if it's still true, but at one point was the dominant Protestant group, if not by number, by political power, and definitely in the South. Threats, murders, coercive control. I mean, again, the child thing, that it can be an outlier, again, outside of what the Catholic Church was doing, moving the priests around, was the big issue. They should have got rid of those guys and prosecuted them, and they would have not had it will sit with them for the next 100 years. People will talk about what the Catholic Church did. But so yeah, you do have mainstream religions do those things as well, and you have cults that don't do those things. Heaven's Gate, for example. Heaven's Gate was a cult. It was a suicide cult, and they castrated the men. And they willingly castrated. Not all of them were castrated, but they're still a cult. Even leading up, even if no one knew they were going to do a ritual suicide, which who knew, right? Hail Bop was coming. That was kind of the inciting incident. But Heaven's Gate had been around since the 70s. And there wasn't, people joining it did not know it was a suicide cult. But by the time it was time to kill themselves, everyone was on board. There were no murders. They're still a cult. So I understand that basically a cult, if it's defined by what they do, then you could say everyone's a cult. You can start going back to that thing. Deep Flamingo says there's a difference between a genuine protest and dressing as a minion as an active nuisance. That's an interesting question. Legally, it's not. You can't protest an active church service. There's actually now in the law for that. They recently passed the law, and it's like it's to cover both reproductive centers like Planned Parenthood and churches. That's the way you could get it passed. You had to say, well, here's a little bit for each side. You can't run into an abortion clinic and start screaming or even just carrying a sign around. You also can't do that at a church. It was a way to get people on both aisles to go, okay, yeah, probably shouldn't do that. You can protest around the church. You can protest around an abortion center. There is a limit, like you have to be so far away. But yeah, and that's a recent law that's only been in the past couple of years, which is interesting because in America you have a right to protest. So there is arguments say, no, you should be able to go into a church and protest. But if it's an active church, in our Church of Scientology, they are technically always an active church. They don't really have like a meeting, like a Sunday, we're all coming here to be gathered and listen to the head of the church. It's always in operation. So, but it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's classified as a church, and they're always open. So it's a super interesting question. Kelly is also Southern Baptist. So me and Kelly. So let me get this right, Kelly. We're born on the same day, both Southern Baptists. I don't know. You might be a clone. You might be a mimic. I don't know. I've never seen you at the same place at the same time as me. Let's see here. Maria goes, I think it's cool that you actually watched that video. I don't know if that's a relation to me or another video. Because the comments were going by. We had quite a long conversation between only EXO and Rudy, which I love to see, right? You guys talking amongst each other as well, but it's just brr. And then let's see here. We'll be wrapping it up here. Jack Squat says, let me jump down to this because I want to make sure that they're still on when I oh, okay. So I got another donation from the Bustins, which makes me easier to pronounce his name. So Bijela Gorilla the Bustons, a $10 donation. I guess I don't need to say the amount. I mean, everyone can see it, but thank you so much for the donation. Congrats on the 8 years, Jason. The Bustons. No, really, really appreciate that. Really good group. All of you guys are a fantastic group. I got my list of shout outs to do, and I really appreciate that. Jack Squat asked, did you ever do an episode on the extra books of the Bible? I did, actually. We did the Book of Enoch, and that's when he specifically asked, like the Book of Enoch or any of that stuff. Removed from the Council of Nicaea. We did do the Book of Giants. I don't know. That's not specifically the Book of Enoch, but it's about Enoch. Now, listen, man, that episode was one of the few episodes. There's very few episodes that I plan out where I know I'm going to do an episode on this topic. And I have time to think about it. There's 3 times I've done that on the show, really. I mean, I do Max Kramer weeks and stuff like that, but the Book of Giants, that's why there's a song at the ending. Book of Giants 1, which is a not good song, but the Book of Giants 1 was one that I came up with the idea. I typed my notes up, and then I waited a couple weeks to do it because I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it justice. I haven't listened to it in years. It's probably super cringy. I know the song's cringy because it's on my iPod and it pops up from time to time. Now, not the finished version, but the instrumental, because I was having to practice the song. So every so often I'll be out walking and I'll hear like that beat, that royalty-free beat, which is slam and beat. I do like the beat. I'm not knocking the beat, but my name is Enoch. What was it? I don't remember. My name is Enoch, and I party with the Ewoks. Well, it made sense with the song because he doesn't die. He goes to heaven, or that he gets taken away. My name is Enoch, and I party with the Ewoks. I lived from a different epoch, or something like that. It was bad. It's super cringy. And I know that it was cringy. I put it out. I think it's fun, but it's pretty cringy. We did that episode, was pre-planned. The other episode was still probably one of my favorite episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio. I think it was episode 49 or somewhere around there. The vampire sex cult of Yerba Buena. I think that's probably the best episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. There's a few contenders for it. I think my most recent best episode, I remember when I was working on it, when I finished it, when I listened to it, editing it, I go, this might be the best episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but the way it's structured, and it took me a while to figure out how I was going to tell the story about the dog walker, which I'm not going to repeat here, It's a mystery. That episode, I think, is so... Here's the thing. The old episodes, the stories were better. Yes, I agree with you guys on that. We've talked about that before on the show, and I've talked about it personally. Monkeys don't exist. World War II never happened. Michigan Blue Hell. Dublin, Wisconsin. Sentient Soy. Those are English travel. Those are amazing topics. Mudflood. Tataria. Those are amazing topics. The topics were better back then. I 100% agree. I think the episodes are better now. The stories aren't. The individual stories aren't. I'm talking directly to the camera now. The individual stories aren't, and I agree with you on that. But I think the episodes are better. And the thing is like, I can't keep covering Tataria. I can't keep covering the man from Torred, which we discovered has a logical answer. It was a real guy who was arrested by the Japanese authorities for having a false ID. Solar plexus clown gliders. All of these are great, great stories, but you can only tell them once. Outside of solar plexus clown gliders, because we keep finding stuff. But I think the episodes are better. I think they're more entertaining now. I feel like I have a better grasp. I think that even though I do go off topic, I don't go off topic in the middle of the narrative. I think I go off topic more at the beginning. Then I'll tell the story. At least I think I'm better at that. I think I'm better at doing it now. But I do agree that the topics were better back then. But what are you going to do, right? Some content creators only put something out once every month or every 3 months. I like having a regular show. But Vampire Sex Cult of Yerba Buena, I think, is one of the best stories we've ever covered on the podcast. And it's one of my favorite episodes because I planned it out. That was one that I go, this is the way I'm going to tell. And actually, that episode, when I finished it, I go, I should quit the podcast. It's never going to get better than this. And I was really stressing, and I think maybe 2 episodes later was Monkeys Don't Exist. It might have been the very next episode was Monkeys Don't Exist. Because I remember thinking, I'm never gonna do anything as good as the Vampire Sex Cult of Yerba Buena, and it breaks my heart that no one else has covered that story. It's such a good story. It's fantastic. That also has a song at the end. No, it doesn't have a song. It has a fetus Jason flying the Carpenter copter, which at the time, that makes no sense. At the time, I thought that was a terrible ending because the Carpenter copter hadn't been established as well. I mean, it was there. The Fluffle was just beginning, and I thought if this is someone's first episode, and every episode someone's first episode, this ending ruins it. Why is there a fetus flying around operating a chain gun from a Carpenter copter? And originally, it was not in there. I had planned for it to be in there, and I didn't put it in there. I recorded the episode from beginning to end, and then I left. I think I went to work because it was a pre-planned episode out. I had more time to do it. And I remember going, I need to put the fetus with the chain gun in it. I just need to. It needs to be in there. The ending's so dour. I need to put the baby fetus with the chain gun. So I went and I recorded that and I added it in. And when I edited it, I go, this doesn't work. This isn't gonna. But I'm glad that it's there. I think it kind of brought it from a funny true crime story. It's horrible. A bunch of people die in it in real life, but I thought I told it in a funny way and then ended it in a Dead Rabbit Radio way. The other episode that I planned out, it was the last episode I really, really planned out. I knew I was going to do it months ahead of doing it, was The Tree Murderer, which is a very like low level episode. No one ever brings it up as their favorite. No one ever really talked about it. But for me, that was one of those episodes I know that this is going to be the end of the season. It's an interesting murder story where a guy was killing the town tree, and everyone in town was trying to figure out what was happening to this tree. I remember reading about it in the news, and I go, I can't wait. This is one of those things. I cannot wait to tell this story on the podcast. I cannot wait to tell this story on the podcast. But speaking of that, I think we're going to have to wrap up this live stream. This might be the longest live stream we've ever done. It's over 2.5 hours long. Really, really glad you guys all showed out. I want to do one more quick look here and take a look at some more of these comments. Jack Squat says, "Don't fear the cringe, fear the regret of doing something." Yeah, no, I agree. I try not to fear the cringe, but I do it. Kelly tells me she's not a mimic, but don't believe that. That's exactly what a mimic would say. Drunk Bob 2280. I think you might have popped in earlier, but thanks for swinging on by. Draw Until the Casket Drops. I think I first found you on YouTube during the whole iceberg breakdown deep dives. Yep, see that iceberg was fantastic. Stonehead of Guatemala. I love that story. Again, like we had a resolution to it. Sustained Disgust created a whole new iceberg that we're still going through, but that's something I do want to get back to. But again, yeah, the old stuff, great stories. But I love doing the podcast. If I was just kind of doing it, running through the motions, that'd be one thing. But I find stories that I go, I can't wait to tell the story on the podcast. I think this is going to be a really interesting story. But does the story of the haunted daycare, that's one that's coming up, and I think it's terrifying. The haunted daycare story, I was like, oh, this is creepy. Is it as good as Sentient Soy? No, it's not. Is it as good as the man who did TMT and turned into a ceiling fan? No, but even that's a super recent episode. The guy who became a ceiling fan. I think we're still putting out bangers. We're going to keep putting out bangers as long as we're around. So I'm glad you guys have been here 8 years. Here's to another 12. I don't want to say just another 8. Let's make it 20, but I really appreciate you guys coming out. Hey, yeah, Connie said, hope you have a great 4th. You guys have a great 4th. No matter what country you're in, I hope you guys have a great 4th of July. Jack Squat says, thanks for streaming. Oh, well, first live stream I made it to after years of listening, and it was awesome. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for being here. Chicago K9 gives a little heart emoji. Really appreciate it. Kelly says, loves when I crack up during the episodes. Yeah, I know. That's the number one complaint I get from new listeners. But Rudy, thanks for 8 years of Strangeness. Thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for always being there. Thanks for being a Discord mod as well. TG4463 giving us a hand wave. Bull Rush, appreciate the live stream. Bangers upon bangers, TG4463. Have a fun weekend as well, Deep Flamingo. I'm going to go hang out with these kittens some more. We got 3 cats on the stream. TG4463 coming in from France. That's awesome, dude. It's so cool. It's really cool. And also, I'm not saying the people in America aren't cool listeners. It's just who would have thought we'd have all these people in all these different states and countries. Maria, Artorius, Alex, see you guys later. Alex, maybe I'll see you on Battlefield later, Battlefield 6. But I'm going to head on out. You guys have a great 4th of July. You guys have a great weekend. We'll be back next week with some more stuff. Glad you were able to make it out to the live stream. Catch you on the flip side. That's my new catchphrase. I'm going to start saying that at the end of each live stream or just each episode. Catch you on the, let's do a freeze frame. Catch you on the flip side.